Good morning, everybody. My name is Paddy Matthews. I'm Head of Operations with Ireland's Hidden Heartlands with Fáilte Ireland, and you're all very welcome this morning to the National Food Tourism E-Commerce webinar. This morning's webinar is about maximising your opportunities for online and off-premises sales. I don't need to tell any of you what a horrendous year it's been last year for the industry. It's been exceptionally difficult for all. But so many businesses have responded to the challenge by displaying their characteristic resilience, determination and innovation. And the food sector in particular has proven to be exceptionally inventive during this time. Our focus in Fáilte Ireland this year is all about survive to thrive. And what can we do to help businesses stay afloat? What supports can we put in place? And there are a huge range of supports on the Fáilte Ireland website that hopefully you're all availing of. And then how can we help the recovery? So when things do open up again, what's the best strategy for recovery that we can assist you with? And this webinar is part of that initiative. So what will this morning's webinar cover? We have a great lineup for you. We have a range of travel and food writers, online sales experts, and your peers who have led the change in online and off-premises sales. The webinar itself will cover what the food consumer wants. The latest behaviour research is going to be covered by my own colleague Tracey Coughlan a little later. What are the emerging global food experiences? How to choose and prepare your product for online sales? What's in the box? Food that travels well. That's all about the new trend in box deliveries. That's really a storm at the moment. Maximising sales and revenue, the online opportunity. Communications and PR strategies, and we'll have a range of communication experts and also, as I said, case studies from your own peers who are leading the charge in relation to this. So that's all from me. Wish you a very productive day, and I'll hand you over to Tracey Coughlan, who's our food manager in Fáilte Ireland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paddy. I'm delighted to be with you all this morning for this, our e-commerce and communications webinar. So over the last while, we in the food team have been doing some research. I suppose while Fáilte Ireland has its Survive to Thrive strategy, other destinations around the world and businesses just like you have been suffering from the impact of COVID. So over the last quarter particularly, we've been taking a look at what's happening around the world at destination level and what's happening at the business or the enterprise level. We've also taken a look at what's happening across food markets to establish some best practice and indeed national food trails. So what are people doing in destinations that are slightly ahead of us in terms of responding to COVID, because COVID came their way first. So all of this research I won't go into today because I simply don't have time, but it is all available on the Fáilte Ireland website on the food section. So there's a breadth of information in there, and I would encourage all of you, whether you're a local authority at destination level or a member of a DRT, or if you're looking for ideas for your own business, there's a wealth of best practice information in there. So please do have a look. Today, I'm going to focus on a very important question. It's what does the Irish food consumer want? We all know that this year is going to be about the staycation again. And what we want and need to do is ask the right questions and understand this market as best we can, so we can best serve it this year and grow your revenues as best you can. So while it can be challenging for consumers to predict their future behaviour, and particularly in a situation like this pandemic, a number of new behaviours have established or been adopted since March 2020. And some of these behaviours offer benefits to the consumer. So there's a good chance that some of these will stick into the future or the longer term, which is classed as post-vaccination. I'm going to quickly touch on takeaway, click and collect, outdoor dining, and technology and timings or time slots in the research I go through with you today. So takeaway, click and collect is the first one I'm going to look at. So basically what our research has shown is the pattern of motivation for dining out pre and post COVID is largely the same. We all look forward to dining out, to enjoy nice tasty food, to relax, to unwind, simply because we don't want to cook, to enjoy a celebration like a birthday, a christening, or indeed Valentine's, or to have some fun. But where we are seeing growth is people really wanting an experience to look forward to. The research showed quite an amount of pent-up demand to get a break from this enforced routine and to get back out there and enjoy dining experiences. So the research confirms, I suppose, what we all know as consumers. We're looking forward to getting our lives back, and when the time is right, getting back out there and having dining experiences to look forward to. Pre-COVID, more than 30% of Irish consumers were weekly users of takeaway and cafes, and they were mixed across pubs, cafes, restaurants, but particularly niche restaurants such as Chinese, fish and chips, very Indian takeaway. What we are seeing has happened since lockdown is that takeaway now accounts for 71% of takeaway. So I'm sure you're saying no surprise there when there are not many other options available. But what's interesting about this number is that 15% of this new market share is in restaurant takeaways. So where your local restaurant or your favorite restaurant has diversified to offer you, the consumer, click and collect service or takeaway. So there's a whole new market share in the mix. And while this has been something that has been developed in countries like the USA for quite some time, this option or the hybrid model of being able to sit in or take away is something that the research is showing is likely to continue into the future. But whilst this will continue, the click and collect and take out interest, as I said in the previous slide, there is that pent-up demand. So there will be plenty of people looking to get back out to sit in or dine in experiences also. During the lockdown and earlier reopening stages, consumers started using their favourite restaurants or establishments in different ways, getting takeaway meal kits from restaurants where they used to sit in, frequenting food trucks for new meal occasions, or for simply going to a different location to have a different experience, shopping for food in local cafes that had turned themselves into farmers markets, getting takeaway cocktails rather than just sitting in, going for food and drink in the pub rather than just drinks. All of this obviously is relevant to the various government guidelines and the restriction levels that we're in at any given time. And buying nicer food in supermarkets and delis. So an increase in people looking for greater quality, be that to take away for home dining or for takeout, such as picnics. Supporting local has always been important to us as Irish consumers, but there's a huge resurgence in supporting local, not only in Ireland, but across the globe. There's a real desire to support local businesses. And some of this is driven by the fact that people want to avoid taxis and public transport because they feel busy and a little unsafe. A desire to avoid cities and urban centres. They're still perceived as busy centres. So we know that it's going to be very difficult for the recovery of urban centres. It's going to be more difficult than rural areas because the consumer feels safer in the rural area. There's also a feeling of a stronger connection with your neighbourhood during lockdown. So people really wanting to support their business, their local businesses during this lockdown period and as the tourism sector recovers. There's also opportunities into the future based on this supporting local for staycations. So people in self-catering, which we know there's a rise in this year, caravan and camping type holidays, you can sell local produce to these markets. So there is an opportunity there to prime yourselves for. Outdoor dining. This is an interesting space. The research has shown that almost half of consumers have eaten outside since March, and the overall evaluation by consumers is fairly positive. The rationale for feeling more comfortable eating outside is that 51% say they feel safer eating outside than inside in these new times. 31% want to have more fresh air and ventilation when they're dining, and 16% want more space for social distancing, and they perceive the outdoor space as being more conducive to this. There's also a willingness to eat outside. And what's interesting here is this willingness goes across all 4 seasons. 91% of consumers are saying they are willing to eat outside in the springtime, 97% willing to eat outside in the summertime, 87% in the autumn, and 55% willing to eat outside in the wintertime. Now, I'm sure those of you sitting here looking out at the snow today are thinking, really? But let's remember that ski destinations and colder countries have had a year-round dining experience for a long, long time. So there is opportunity for us in the Irish industry to develop an outdoor dining experience. And what was interesting in the research was there was a variance displayed between what the consumers said they wanted and what the industry perceived they wanted in terms of outdoor dining. So more consumers were looking for outdoor dining experiences than the industry believed they would. The industry perceived in this research the consumer would do this during the pandemic, but once this passed, that the consumer would go back to eating indoors only. And what the research is showing is there's actually going to be a consumer looking for a mixed experience, both indoor and outdoor, into the future. In terms of outdoor dining, the research showed that there is a preference for casual dining, light bites, drinks and cocktails outdoor, rather than the full formal experience, and that there is an opportunity for food trucks, coffee trucks, and bringing the outdoor trails, our greenways, our blueways, our coastal walks and picnic areas to life through food experiences. I suppose all of us have our legs almost walked off at this stage in our recreational activity, the only one really that's allowed right now of walking. So we can all understand the importance of being able to get a hot chocolate for the kids or have a coffee or a sandwich while we're out having our walk. So the consumer is looking for this. Weather protection is incredibly important, however. Whilst the consumer is saying they tend to feel safer outside, there is a key trade-off. People want to feel safe, all right, but they want to be protected from the Irish weather. And above all factors that they reported, keeping warm is a very big factor for Irish people. 59% mentioned the availability of heaters, and indeed some of them are looking for heated seating areas as important comfort criteria. 68% mentioned covered areas. They want to be protected from the wind and the sideways rain, as one of my colleagues puts it. And also the consumer is asking the industry to remember that we're a cool country. So not to dismiss that we can't have what Spain has, but to think more like Scandinavia, and let's put appropriate solutions for weather protection in place. Fáilte Ireland is working with the local authorities on a pilot scheme for outdoor dining, and this is something we're going to be telling you more about in the coming weeks. In terms of technology and new behaviours, what we're seeing here is when consumers return to eating out, there's a number of behaviours that the consumer has gotten used to. So when restaurants were open, because of the guidelines, consumers had to book a 90-minute slot. So they had to complete their dining experience in a 90-minute time slot. They didn't like this overall, is what they reported, and it's not something that they want to continue into the longer term. It has, however, given rise to a more complex restaurant customer journey. And this is something that presents opportunities into the future. So, for example, people started having their meal out in one venue and their drink somewhere else, having a main course in one venue and having dessert somewhere else, or having a main course in one restaurant and some takeaway cocktails to have at home. So within there, again, we see opportunities for collaboration and a mixed dining experience into the future, because the consumer is almost retrained and looking for a more varied dining experience into the future. And also in terms of time slots, what the research showed is that there's an opportunity to drive your revenue through maximising the time slots you have available to you for service. So for example, the senior clientele are more interested in the quieter periods. So perhaps your Monday, Tuesday nights, your 5 to 6, 6 to 7 o'clock slots, where they'll feel safer because it's less busy, where your Generation Z or your millennials are much happier to be in a more crowded environment, or your peak times or later night dining. There's also a lot of opportunities for targeting niche markets, be that HSE workers, families, and my colleague Jennifer on the webinar later is going to share some learnings in this regard from the retail sector. Click and collect has become our new normal, and consumers are using much more technology across all stages of the dining experience as a result of COVID. People are ordering from home, They're using delivery apps, Uber, Deliveroo, etc. They're checking into restaurants and ordering and reviewing menus in advance. And interestingly, 73% of consumers are saying they are likely to continue using click and collect as part of the dining mix after the pandemic. And 73% say they're likely to continue using food ordering apps and menus after the pandemic. So they've gotten used to technology is essentially what this slide is saying. The extent to which technology can add to the experience depends on the type of dining experience being sought. For takeaway and delivery options, there's an openness to the whole process being delivered in a technologically smart way. They see this as an efficient way of having takeaway and delivery options serviced. In terms of casual dining, again, quite comfortable using digital in this regard, using QR codes to view the menus. I suppose before people get to their restaurants, they're happy to view the menus and indeed order in advance. But when it comes to casual dining, the consumer is still looking for some level of personal service. So that is important to them. So while they see the new technology as creating a more efficient service, I suppose they're still looking for some human contact. When you come to high-end dining, what's interesting here is there's a little more resistance to technology. While they say it makes sense, they still really want personal service when they're engaging in a high-end dining experience. So I suppose the use of technology needs to be customized in a way that your customers, who you understand best, feel comfortable with.
Sorry, Tracey, just 2 minutes left there to sum up, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. Better hurry up. So I won't go through the detail of these summary recommendations. All of this research, as I've said, is on the Fáilte Ireland website. There's a lot more research than I'm sharing with you today because the time watcher there has told me I've got to hurry up, but it's all on the website. So please do go on there and have a look. And also make sure to keep checking in with our COVID-19 Business Supports Hub, where there is a wealth of information available to support you during this challenging time. And now, yes, there we go. So that's it for me for now. I'll be back to you later on during the session. But for now, I'm going to hand you over to someone who needs no introduction, the fantastic Pól O'Conghaile, who's going to inspire you and share some of what's happening around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracey, and I hope everybody is doing as well as can be expected out there. A lot of that research really resonates with me, both personally and in terms of what I'm seeing travel trends wise. What I think I'd like to talk to you about this morning is just in as much as is possible to distill the info, the research, the reader queries and the trends I'm seeing come across my desk as a travel editor into vague sort of trends and directions that I think are going to be important in travel and food this year. What the hell has just happened? I was out for my evening walk last night with a friend. We were both saying we still kind of felt we could wake up tomorrow morning and it would be normal and it would all be a nightmare, and it still feels like that a year in. But clearly we can't, and that's not going to happen. We're in an absolute existential crisis at the moment. There is no doubt about it. This is rock bottom for tourism. This is a recession that isn't affecting everybody equally. The services, tourism, hospitality, and the performing arts in particular are way more adversely affected than the rest of us. This is a year about survival and about retaining staff. We want to keep that amazing experience from walking out the door in Ireland, and that's critical this year because we need those people to help us recovery. We don't know how long recovery is going to take. This is going to be another year of the staycation, certainly a summer of the staycation. So let's have a quick look at where those trend lines are leading, in my opinion. So there's a couple of points I want to make to you. First of all, this is absolute disruption, chaos, but it is a chance to be creative and to reset. There's a chance here to look at COVID as a circuit breaker, to see what can disruption do for me? How can I adapt my business now that I have time and space? What can I use this time for? How can I reimagine things? And that's happening all over the world. it's happening in Ireland to a creative degree that is absolutely right up there with the best I'm seeing in all over the planet. You just saw at Christmas how creative food and hospitality got, and it's not just about hampers, and it's not just about cookbooks. The meal kits, the retail, the creativity out there is just astonishing and gives me real hope for where we're going to go and what we're going to see this summer. There are lots of examples. I'm just going to throw up a couple of them here, the way the Montenotte in Cork pivoted with its afternoon tea that you could enjoy at home. The Salty Boy, which turned up in my own local Dart Station car park in Greystones the other weekend. I was delighted to get a chowder and a lovely big piece of fresh cod to take and cook at home. The high end as well, it's not just casual food, although that's really driving things. Back to Dine, that's Jan Florio you're seeing in the big picture there in Dublin. And there's been such creativity. And at the bottom is Paul from Saba, whom we're going to play a video from just now. So Colette, if you could play that for us, please.
Since we started back in March, back in March we had 142 employees. During the summer when we got back open, we got up to about 105. Yeah, it's been really tough for those being laid off, but the team's attitude have been incredible. During lockdown 1 in Bagot Street, we opened the coffee hatch out the window. We opened the Saba bottle shop and grocer. We tied in with suppliers like Sheridan's. Our own cocktails, we launched our own cocktail range, which are going quite well. We have freezer fillers, which are our own dishes, frozen, so you can take them home with your takeaway to cook at a later stage. In regard to online, we're pushing the bookings, we're selling vouchers, and I think in regard to vouchers, not to just sell a voucher, but to sell, we call them Saba experiences. So it's a promise of a good night out in the months to come. January and February are going to be a challenge, and in every year outside of a pandemic, January and February can be tough. What we're thinking is we just have to take every support possible. The EWSS scheme, the CRSS, we have to take every subsidy going. We're going to try and apply for Leo grants so we can reinvest in our website. Looking ahead, or even I think it's all about living in the moment and trying to do the best we can. Talking to your team is really important, staying in contact with them. We've also signed a lot of the staff up to training courses through Fáilte Ireland and through SkillNets and the Restaurant Association. There's going to be a roller coaster. We've already had it for the last few months, and we just have to hold on tight, get the message out there, keep the lights on, and stay positive. And we'll get through this. And there's good things that came from this as well. On a personal level, I'm sure everybody's had good experiences, good and bad. But we learn from this, and I think we'll be stronger for it.
I hadn't seen that video. There's a lovely bit of energy in it. When he says January and February can be tough in hospitality, I found these 2 months just so grueling. But let's be positive. Let's try and take the energy that's coming from Paul there. There's a lot more than hampers out there, is basically what he's saying. And there's some great examples of that. I'm just skipping back to this slide. Think about treats and luxury. We're willing to spend a little bit more on ourselves in lockdown at home when a lot of people have more household income. Gift is a good opportunity to gain a new customer and to get yourself off on a new relationship footing. Have a think about Irish people living overseas. I wrote a column recently that many of those have not been home in a year, and they are craving connections. They really miss friends, family, and Ireland. What about people who are missing travel? Myself, haven't been on a plane in a year. I am looking to food for a taste of abroad. Self-catering is booking like hotcakes at the moment, and I think serving people who are in self-catering and Airbnbs this summer is going to be a real opportunity. Those meal kits, those takeaways, those cook-ins, those reunions, food is going to play a really big part of that, and all of those could be revenue opportunities as we go forward. So let me just drill into a couple of the trends that I'm seeing and where they might be sort of tapped into in terms of food and hospitality. This is my favorite tweet of last year. It feels a little bit like most of us will understand this. On the one hand, you're speaking to Zoom, you're just about holding it together. And on the other, the children's toys, the laptop balanced on the chair, the chaos just about stringing things along. And I think a lot of us feel like that. It's great that we have Zoom and Skype and all the rest of it, but I think we're just royally fed up with it at the moment, and we're looking for ways to amp up that experience. And I think food is absolutely critical to that. The missed birthdays, the occasions, how we can connect in those moments. This is just one lovely example. Belfast Food Tour, which many of you will have taken in Belfast, is doing a food tour in a box. So everybody orders it and they open it at the same time, and they discover the experience in their own home with a few friends. It's a great way of keeping a piece of revenue going and bringing people together. There's a huge corporate opportunity out there. A piece of research from irishjobs.ie and iReach here. Remote working in isolation, 81% of us have no workplace social activities at the moment, and just 9% hosted a virtual Christmas party. There's got to be an opportunity there as we move on through this year. Tracey mentioned and Paul mentioned experiences and experiential offerings. There is no doubt about it. They're going to be huge. They already were before we came into this pandemic. We're seeing companies like Peak.com here and Airbnb experiences do well in the pandemic because of local people looking for stuff to do in their localities that they mightn't have known about. And there's an opportunity there as we move forward too. There's just one example of Katz's Deli. You'll know it from the When Harry Met Sally movie, I'll Have What She's Having. They're not just doing a takeout, but they're pitching it very much as an experience, a taste of New York. What do you miss? How can you share it with your friends and family? And those kind of experiences are not just happening overseas. That's just one example from Dublin of great kind of a gift that's tying in with Booger's reputation for great burgers in Dublin. And this example I wanted to share, Ted's Grocery in Victoria, Australia. They're doing the take-home meal kits, the booze boxes and the cocktail kits and all the rest of it, which we are too in Ireland. But I love that they also provide access to the bar's playlists. It's not just about the food, it's about the atmosphere and being in a different environment that we're really missing at the moment. So how can you tap into that? Subscriptions, I think, are growing all over the world. We've got, we're used to paying for our music, for our Netflix, for our news with subscriptions, but they're really growing in food. You can look at everything from coffee to the cocktail kits I have there from the 12 Hotel. And B&B is a holiday company that works in terms of subscriptions. You pay a certain amount every month and you can buy 3 holidays a year. Is there some way you can leverage subscriptions for your business? A quick note on quality. Whatever you do, don't just do it for the sake of it. We've all had those boxes come through the door in lockdown, and we've been delighted by some and we've been disappointed by others. And the ones we're disappointed by, we don't order again. So just take time to get it right. Think about what the product says about you. What do I feel? What does it make me think when I open that box? Value is critical. Lots of people have made household savings. Lots of people haven't in this pandemic. We still are acutely aware of what's good value or not. And it doesn't have anything to do with price. It has to do with delivering a great experience that we feel is worth what we spend. And think about adding a little bit extra. What about a handwritten note, a little surprise, an extra little bottle of, I don't know, a local distillery's hand sanitizer, whatever it may be. Those little flourishes make these things memorable. Sustainability, it hasn't gone away. It was the single biggest issue in travel before the pandemic. And I really think that it's going to carry on, and I hope, as we emerge from it. So there's a lot of talk out there about whether we'll travel more meaningfully or with more purpose in the future, or whether we'll all just rush out and buy those €5 Ryanair flights and go crazy again. But I do think the longer this goes on, the more we're going to reevaluate travel and the way we travel. The fact that it's not something we can take for granted, that fact that it brings us together, and destinations are starting to look at how they can make it about more quality, more of use to their local towns and villages and regions than simply people just breezing through on coaches and moving on again. It's not just destinations. Guinness, I don't know if you saw that, recently launched this 2030 sustainability strategy. You've heard of Sea to Fork and Farm to Fork. They're looking at grain to glass. taking this moment again as an opportunity to revamp and review their whole sustainability approach. Also, when you are delivering or providing, be it a gift, a meal kit, a cookery book or anything to a customer sitting at home, what does the delivery say about you? Are you using loads and loads of plastic, or are you making an effort to make it recyclable and be creative with that? The whole experience from it being handed over or dropped at your doorstep to us enjoying it on that Zoom call or in our self-catering is about you, and it's a reputational thing that you're creating with us. So the final point I'll make, and this returns really nicely to the research that Tracey shared there is I think a complete reconnection with our communities happening here. It's really game-changing, generational reconnection with the locality around us. I want to zoom out really quickly to a restaurant in Bangkok, Ga, not our own Ga, but that's the restaurant I'm talking about here. This is a chef on the world's 50 best restaurants lists, and she was a high-end restaurant who, during the pandemic, pivoted. I'm a champion of Thai local ingredients, local techniques, local this and that, she says, but I think we forgot about our local client base. Restrictions on travel made us realize that we weren't paying attention to our biggest local asset. And I think as the tide is out now all around the world, we're missing our overseas visitors. We're seeing where, certainly in cities, where a dependence lay, and people are thinking about how they may adapt to create a more sustainable mix of overseas. We want our overseas visitors back, there's no doubt about it, but how can we cater creatively to our local communities too? Their solution was to open a new all-day casual canteen and wine bar, but that's just one of a myriad of options that we can look at. I wanted to share this slide quickly because it is about lifestyle hotels. We used to speak about boutique hotels, but the talk in travel is really turning now to hotels that fulfill a lifestyle need in their communities. Think about those open lobbies where you can work, where you can play, where you can meet, where a DJ plugs in the evening, where there might be a retail shelf selling, you know, local t-shirts, prints, marmalades, gifts. And that is a reflection of the community that the hotel is set in, but it also reflects how we like to engage with premises and with travel at the moment. Really worth looking at that, lifestyle brands and how they're interacting with hotels. Accor is the example I've given here, but there are lots more out there. As we move forward, here's one other example I wanted to share. Sorry, this is about retail, and it's Ace Hotel, which is actually using the pandemic to open a new hotel in Sydney. It's not just about selling rooms. It's about when you go to this hotel, like with the Hoxton in London, I guess, which is also opening in Rome this year, you are buying into a lifestyle as much as a room. And they're selling guitars, they're selling prints, they're selling the throws that you have on your bed, the baseball hats, and of course they're doing meal kits as well, prepared by their chefs. We're buying into community, a vibe, an experience, a lifestyle, and we're going to want to do that as we step outside of our homes and our 5Ks. And Ireland, this is really, really resonant. We want to pull on the green jersey. We saw how much people realized how their spend mattered last year in Ireland and the difference it made. We're going to be out there exploring again. We've also seen how phenomenal our local restaurants and hotels and hospitalities of businesses have been in terms of giving back to the community, helping our healthcare workers, providing meals to people who are older or isolated, and just being super creative as they battle their way through this crisis. And I think that all of that is pent up kind of pride that we can tie into as we go forward. And a final optimistic slide on this. It's not just me saying it, it's not just us. Lonely Planet bestowed one of their top 30 recognitions for 2021 on the Burren Ecotourism Network last year. One of only 30 around the world it named as the best community tourism project on the planet. So what is happening in Ireland, the way communities are getting together and the way they are dreaming up tourism again is making a splash, and it will do as we go forward, and you will be absolutely at the heart of that, I've no doubt. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to getting out there and traveling and eating all your wonderful food just as soon as possible. I'm going to hand over now to our next speaker, who is Jennifer Kennedy of JK Consulting. Look after yourselves.
Good morning, and thank you, Pól. It's been so interesting hearing Tracey, Paddy, and Pól so far this morning. I'm here to really talk to you from a retail perspective about how to build on what you're all currently doing out there at the moment, and show you some great case studies, and also to utilize the retail elements of your business and brands that may now have emerged for future growth and development, and something that can stay with you regardless of what happens into the future. So really, the products to enhance what you do, the main thing is, who are you, what do you sell, and the topics I'm going to cover with you here are why people purchase from anybody, what's the decision-making process, and what are the key things that make them push the button to buy from you or whoever else is advertising out there. So what should you sell? Well, it sits really with who you are and what you're about. Restaurants, pubs, gastropubs are all now retailing online, which may not have been a space they played in previously. The gift giving experience is one that is ripe for improvement and is going to continue into the future. So it's worth investing in now and with the future in mind. The online level of gifting has really risen because people have no other way of sending wishes or getting to see people in person. So there's an obligation nearly to want to gift more than maybe we would have previously. Value, local, and safety are all key drivers to purchase this year. So they're all things you should be using when you are communicating via your social media channels or on your website. These are key hooks that customers are interested in knowing and hearing about. And that what you're selling is good value, that they feel like they're getting a really good option from purchasing from you and what you have to offer. So the main markets that you have to work with, we've got a domestic market that has a really unique opportunity this year. Travel takes central stage. And then we have the international market where people are at home or abroad, so they want to send the gift more. Clearly communicate your costs and your policies regarding your time frame for shipping. This is really important when people are making decisions to send something to a loved one abroad. Self-gifting. This has become a huge market in the last year where people are purchasing for themselves. They're buying themselves treats, they're prepared to spend more, and more than ever, they want to cheer themselves up and send things to other people that also potentially they can resend. So this is where the subscription models have really come into play. This is an example of how to define your product that you should sell online. Your own brand must take center stage regardless of what you are, whether you're a food producer, whether you're a pub, a restaurant. Anything that goes out online must really reflect your brand and what you're about. It should be on the visuals for your product online, through the actual product itself, and then the packaging and messaging that goes with it. So you're now retailing online. So one of the key things is what type of product do you produce and how many options are within your product category or range? Am I going out to market with 3 product options people can purchase from me online? Or can I add in merchandise and other supplementary things to build out a broader product option so that I may have 6 or 10 product offers that people can purchase online? Depending on the nature of your product, hampers, box sets, gift bags, gift vouchers, they're all popular and can all be paired or bundled with other things to create a broader offer that people can send home or purchase for themselves. Care packages are becoming very popular as well, and they have elements of food, but they also have elements of other product in alongside a care package. So you may have the foodie offer, but you may also have a candle, or you may have, I don't know, chocolate or some other element that you don't provide yourself, but you've put together in a product bundle for people to be able to have that whole offer at home. Anything that you can sell that will require further replenishment is also a really good option to have, so that they will come back time and time again to get your product. There's some really clever innovations out there at the moment, and one of them is the Alta box, where they have done the booze box, they've done the creative cocktails, but what's interesting in this one is This is predominantly, it's a Dublin restaurant, but they deliver nationwide. So that was a kind of big shift and a big change, and you'll see that a lot more. And in a retail environment, that's not a barrier for normal retail online. Wherever you are, wherever you're located, you can purchase and have delivery to your home. Prior to our current situation, restaurants particularly tended, if they did deliver or if they're new to the delivery, they tended to stay local enough. So there are some out there who are now doing their boxes and subscription models nationwide, which is a great add-on sell. The FOMO, the fear of missing out, this is another, I suppose, tool or trick that can be used if you're a high-end restaurant or a gastro pub, or you have a lovely premium foodie offer, only have 100 boxes available per week. This really can drive interest and demand, but also from an operational point of view, it can help you manage your costs, your overheads, and it's realistic. If that's all you can physically do in a week, then put it out there as your messaging, that's what you are able to do in terms of delivery in a week. This is another example from the Pitt brothers, this burger boxes. But again, one of the elements they've tied into this is they donate to charity for every offer that's purchased from them, which again is a lovely way of communicating to your customers that you care about what's going on around you, and you're also donating to other things. They've free delivery, which is another add-on or reason to purchase from them. And they have diversified so that they're selling their own beer, or sorry, their own cider option alongside their food boxes, so that you can get your alcohol and your food delivered from the same place at the same time. Retail is all about emotion, and it's all about how people feel. And because we're not able to go into retail at the moment, we're missing that. We don't have that connection that you have when you go to a retail space or a shop or into a restaurant or a cafe, where you're there to meet people, you're there to engage, and it's very much driven by how you are feeling. So trying to get that in an online capacity is a challenge, but it's doable, and it has been happening all over the country and all over the globe. So some of the ways to connect with your family, friends have been through virtual cooking classes, virtual wine tastings, virtual family dinners. So all of these can be tied into the product offer that you are going out to market with online. It may not be your area of expertise, but can you partner with people that do specialize in these things? So if they're buying a food box from me as an extra added on piece, can we also supply them with the opportunity to dial in and do a virtual wine tasting with somebody who works in our business? So things like that are the added extra experience pieces that may not cost a lot, but add a whole lot in terms of experience and your brand to the people who have bought into what the main physical product may have been, which may have arrived into their door. This is a lovely example of afternoon tea, the old music shop. So the idea being you get yourself ready for afternoon tea, and you've invited someone else virtually to afternoon tea, and then they've had their box delivered and you've had yours, and then you sign in and have your afternoon tea together and engage and enjoy it. Here's another great example in Mount Mary and Michael's, where they've had to really try numerous different ways to engage with people. They have outdoor markets, street food, prohibition coffee at the weekends. They've tried so many wonderful things. And I'm going to run into a video next for Michael's, because I think they tell you better than I do themselves what they've done, and also from Tuscany in Killaloe.
We branched ourselves out into four different areas. We're doing the click and collect from both restaurants. We turned a terrace into a market called Little Lockdown. We're doing street food on Sundays and gift and hamper boxes. It's been very, very stressful. It's taken lots of work, but we have managed to keep our entire team in full-time employment through this. The street food should keep us going through December without any huge drama. We know what we're doing by this stage, and we get to focus on on doing what we know will work is not subject to any government guidelines. Even if they change the rules, it still won't affect any of those revenue streams. It's going to be key to see which patterns are formed during this and which ones will stick and which ones won't. It's about figuring out what the customers will want to spend it on. They are very likely wouldn't have spent their money through December on all of the socialising. Street food, I think, is going to be the way forward for 2021. I think loads of small premises are going to come up, and hatch dining might be the way forward. So that's what we're doing. But to be honest, nobody knows what position the world will be in, what the customers will want. But once again, it's just a case of staying very, very nimble and flexible through the first quarter of next year, because by the summer, I think the world will be back in a more stable place.
It's been such a challenge. It's been a challenge on so many levels, operationally, emotionally, mentally. It's been a huge challenge. And one of the first things that we did was we got a guy called JJ O'Riordan from the Mindful Leader involved in a kind of a management course. So we took our kind of 8 key management people and we made sure that we were all on the same page, because if we weren't on the same page, we wouldn't have kind of got through this fight as well as we did. I'd like to think that we did. We came up with a stunning DIY kind of cocktail kits, food kits, which I have to say worked really, really well. We also kind of broke into the hamper side of things, but I must say that our little nugget was definitely our cocktail DIY kits. But again, going back to what we did in 2020, we'll have to get super creative and lateral and bring Tuscany to people's homes. We have to still keep looking at value for money, looking at offers for our customers, looking at special deals, looking at some kind of discount sometimes, midweek maybe. So I think businesses just have to be lateral, creative, look at their target market, look at their sales, and believe in your team, be grateful for our customers, and we've just got to have a lot of faith, and I believe that we will see better times.
Great. So as you can see, some really interesting techniques and products that they've tried and tested with some great success. And these products will still be valuable into the future. As mentioned from Tracey earlier on this morning, the idea that people may eat and then take their cocktails home with them is something that will probably stay with us into the future. So if this is something that you can do within your business or can tap into, then do consider it. The visual path to purchase is obviously hugely important. People buy with their eyes. They always have, they always will. So what they see and how it shows up on your website is key to making them push the buy button for gifting. So what does it look like? Have you got it lit properly, and does it look like something I want for myself or that I want to gift to someone else? Your packaging needs to also look desirable. And it's great to be able to show people online before they purchase what the packaging will look like when you're you're choosing something as a gift. I know myself, when I'm buying something, it's important to me how it will show up when it gets to the person I'm sending it to. Put yourself in the mind of your customer and preempt, what you think they would like to see or what you would like. We're all consumers. We all generally like things to be a certain way when we've paid for them. So really make sure you're staying premium and true to yourself and your brand, and you're really looking after how you're presented out there. And then back to the emotion piece as well, because I still will always say this is the key driver for why people purchase anything. Creating themes for your products is great. Can you come up with the cocktail party, or from our homes to yours? Or, if you're sending baked goods, are you sending it to somebody because you love baking? So it's also pairing up the personality or the person you want to send product to with the actual product. Here's a great example of a brewing company called Rascals in Inchicore. And I chose these because they are so diverse in the retail offer that they've come to market with. So they make all different variants of beer. As you can see, their packaging is super colorful, really interesting. You can buy a mixed case of different flavored beers with different options. You can, once the restrictions lifted, you'll be able to go and do the outdoor dining element back where they used to. At the moment, you're able to get deliveries or click and collect options. but also they've diversified into other additional merchandise. So you can get a baseball cap, you can get a t-shirt, and if you see the way they've packaged up their gift card, it looks like something like a lovely little gift or parcel that would arrive in the post if you want to gift it to somebody. So they've really branched into other merchandise opportunities that support their brand. And not everyone can do this, but if you can, it's worth considering. Can you create an apron or a cool apron that's connected to your brand, your foodie offer? Are there certain things that you sell that other types of merchandise complement? You know, are you selling seafood or oysters or things like that? So would it be worth getting a branded chuck or a gifting a tray for laying out your oysters in different, depending on what you do, a cheese board, the knife for the cheese board that goes with the cheese pack that goes into the bundle that you send. So consider other elements of products that can sit alongside your core offer, your core food offer, but also complement it as a gifting capacity. Here's an example from the 12 takeaway dining at home with the 12. Again, they have takeaway service, they have national cocktail delivery, they have a bakery, they have a drive-through experience where you can take away your whatever you've ordered from the restaurant, but not have to get out of your car. They'll bring your orders to you, pop it in your boot. There's many restaurants, cafes, bars that if you have the outdoor capability facility that can provide that sort of drive-through service, and coffee shacks, coffee houses are really adapting to that right now. So again, it's another option and a great way of helping your consumer at the moment. Seasonal products, it's nearly Valentine's. It's only a one-day wonder, but it's still a nice opportunity for chocolates, flowers, wine, food offers, you name it. So there is a nice opportunity here, particularly with food for around Valentine's. But then we've got Easter, and there's always something up and coming. So seasonal products are something you can build into your offer. Hampers, treat boxes, we know, everyone knows they're available now more than ever, but if it's a seasonal one, put in things relevant to the season to make it a little bit different. But they are a great gift. And if you're sending to families or groups of people, hampers, treat boxes, it's one size fits all, and it makes it easier for your consumer to cover a one gift for all of a group. The experiences, the future of experiences are great buys for gifting and for yourselves and your families for the future. Experiences are here to stay. They're not going anywhere, and it's an investment. Can you give them a discount into later in the year? Can you give them a free cocktail when they visit? Little incentives to push them, anybody who wants to purchase into this area, to get the little added extra of the experience into the future. Subscription models, 6 months, 12 months, this is the gift that keeps on giving, and more people are self-purchasing subscriptions for themselves. And as you know, obviously gift vouchers have always been out there, but they're now more important than ever. Here's some just personalized gift ideas to add into your offer. Can you put a cookie in with a personalized message on it? People are carving into crates and woods with personalizing names or special happy 40th birthday, Charlie, whatever. So is there ways that you can personalize what you're sending to people to give them that extra added piece for the occasion and the experience alongside your product? I see a little Easter bunny there. The other piece here, because retail may be quite new to a lot of food areas or brands or businesses at the moment, it can be easy to get carried away with, we'll create a fabulous hamper and we'll put all this wonderful product in it and forget to price and cost out the packaging elements and the labor and everything else that goes with making a hamper or a product. So just be mindful that, and I'm not going to go through the detail because I know my time is nearly up, but as a rule of thumb, calculate the elements of your packaging, whether it's a box, a hamper, whatever, as an individual product. Factor margin in on it so that you are profitable throughout the whole piece, and give your customers options for pricing on your offer and your website. Can you give a 15 euro, a 30 euro, a 60 euro product option? The more you can give them in terms of choice and pricing options, the more likely it is that they will participate with you and come back to you. And then to enhance the consumer experience online, keep it simple. That's probably the best thing I can tell you. I'm a retailer by trade, and all of my life I love product and retail and experience and theatre and the drama of space. Now we're trying to do all these things online, and it's not as easy. It's much harder to engage with people and get them excited about who you are and what you do. But you do need to make it easy for them when they do get to your website, when they do get to your online offer. How easy is it to find the gift card selection and your subscription service? It should be super easy for someone who's not tech savvy to find their way around your website. Contactless payments, is it something that can be achieved or not achieved? Make sure it's something that's easy for them to find. Focus on what happens after they've purchased from you. Are you talking to them? Are you keeping in touch with them? Is there something else you can go after to give them a nudge to come back to you? And cater to the self-use market. Talk to the people that want to purchase gift cards for themselves and give them opportunities to come back and use it when you've got a sale or a promotion. Leverage your email and marketing list. So you should be gathering data all the time from people who are purchasing from you, and use this to target people for what your next seasonal offer might be or your next theme. Use your social media channels for promotions, and make it a point to inform your customers of the availability of everything you have to offer on your website. Coffee is an amazing subscription that's really flying at the moment and will continue to do so. Great gift opportunity. Chocolate is another great option for people to have a 3, 6, 12-month new bar of chocolate arriving in the doorstep every month. Cheese is also made a great, if you're interested in cheese and flavors. So any of the food that you work with or you're involved with that gives you multiple flavor options, pairing options, theming it with other elements, can form a subscription offer that can be hugely valuable. And they're here to stay. Subscriptions are absolutely going nowhere. Packaging and shipping, I'm really glossing over this because Niall is coming up after me to give you more detail here in terms of food packaging. But you're dealing with perishables with food. So reassure your customer that your product will be intact, fresh, and packed sustainably. Breakage risk, delivery times, and customer service contact details are super important. If there has been an issue, the easiest way to turn your customer is to deal with them quickly and fast. So if you've ordered a burger box and the buns in it have got squashed on the journey, make it easy for them to get in touch with you and get it sorted out for them quickly. And pricing. Charging to ship or not to ship is a decision that you have to factor into your full cost analysis, and do that with every piece of product that's going into your offer. So in summary, understand your target audience and tailor your approach accordingly. You've got the domestic audience, you've got the audience abroad who the domestic people are currently purchasing for and sending out of the country, and you've got self-purchasing and gifting. Consumers shop with their eyes. Ensure your online storefront is visually appealing. Make it as exciting and lively and colourful and engaging as you can. If you can add music, sound, do it. Any little tricks or things that engage with people, videos are a brilliant way of talking to your consumers when they get to your website. Holiday periods, great opportunity for developing new product lines and going out to market with a new message. Gift vouchers, subscription models, incorporate them all into your e-commerce strategy, and create opportunities to drive your customers back to your business. I hope that was helpful, and I had a very quick run through on retail there. I'm going to hand over now to Niall Hill, who's a chef and food consultant. He can't be with us today, so his session has been pre-recorded, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this morning. Thank you. Bye.
Good morning all, and thank you for joining me. The most challenging question: how do you take your restaurant style of food and put it in a box while still maintaining your core values and protecting your brand? Well, let me take you through this and let's have a look at it. There are 6 key considerations when making that transition from plate to box, which I'm going to go through with you. Menu options, incorporating healthy ingredients, portion control, cost and its importance to your business, sustainable and suitable packaging, the presentation, and the use of e-commerce. Important factors in designing for takeout, especially if it hasn't been part of your core offering, are divided into 3 areas. So let's have a look at these. In regards to the menu, where possible, drive efficiencies and try and incorporate your current restaurant menu. These are items that are already costed and your staff and customers are already familiar with, but might need to be adjusted for takeaway. For example, take a fillet of beef dish. This could be changed to a braised daube or short rib as it reheats much better, but the garnishing kept the same for your restaurant. Deciding on packaging is also important as it's an extension of your brand. This will also give you more options when choosing for your takeaway menu offering. Knowing your cost, this is critical that you're achieving the right margin and protecting your margin erosion. Deciding on whether your food will be hot or cold, as it has a different VAT rate. Also, chilled foods can travel nationwide, whereas hot food is mainly local. Also consider dishes that are robust and arrive in one piece. Try your product in the environment in which it will be stored and traveled in. Reheat in the domestic oven or microwave to help with reheating instructions. This is important for your guests. If you go down the route of shelf life testing, it will cost around €250 per item. This is a consideration that you could group together in categories. Think like a customer. Attention to detail is a must, as first impressions are vital to your customer's overall experience. Considering global current trends, okay? So adapting principles in healthy, sustainable menus could be a really good strategy for the future proofing of your business. You might want to look at ways of reducing fat, sugar, and salt. Studies have shown a reduction in salt is considered one of the most cost-effective ways to improve health. I've used a lot of seaweed in my time as an alternative to salt in master stocks. I've also used reformulation as a tool in reducing sugar and fat in pastry recipes, resulting in a better nutritional value to dishes while also reducing costs. So this is a win-win situation. In foods that travel, let's have a look at this. Low-risk soups travel really well. Broths, pâtés, salads that aren't dressed but have the dressing on the side will also hold really well. Slow-cooked meats work best as they reheat better than prime cuts. Cakes and tarts that are robust have a great shelf life are perfect. However, there are challenges around delicate and cream-based desserts. However, these can be overcome by suitable packaging and protecting cakes like a cheesecake by wrapping acetate around it. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at portion control. So consistency in taste, quality, and the quantity of food is really important for any food business. Portion control is one area that can have an overall impact on customer satisfaction and most importantly, your bottom line, your food cost. In tackling this, rewriting all recipes that will give you consistency in both quality and food cost. Developing SOPs will save time, reduce your training costs, ensure consistent results, and empower your staff. A recipe scaling template with production helps with overproducing may result in waste and underproduction may result in increased labor costs. The right size packaging for the right product can also represent value for money. And implementing achievable KPIs, such as measuring your yield analysis, will save on your bottom line. Developing a framework for new product development, factor this in as a cost, as it is important to get right based on customer demand and feedback. The last thing you need to do is develop a product that's not going to sell. Have your research done before starting and possibly have a gate system in there. Decide on how long you're going to give your product and does it need to be tested for shelf life. Packaging is a cost that should be factored into your selling price. Decide on what percentage it should be of your selling price. In my experience, I've used anywhere between 2 and 5% as a guideline. Different types of packaging will have different costs and can range from 10 cents for a container to 25 cents for a glass jar and lid, depending on the volumes that is ordered with your supplier. Also, brand design messaging that's going to go into your box and labeling will be an added cost. Decide on whether delivery is free. This is important. Is it included in the price or free above a certain value? Have this clearly communicated with your customer and have it added into your cost template. So we're going to have a look at managing your food costs. So the challenge every recipe and see if you're getting the best margin. Take a closer look at the percentage of the ingredients that make up a recipe and see if it makes sense. And so for this example, the squash and the potatoes are examples in this recipe where the percentage could be changed, which will result in savings without compromising on the quality of the dish. Now I'm going to have a look at your packaging because this is really important. Decide on what's important to your brand. Is sustainability a core value? Is cost a deciding factor? Is the food traveling hot or cold? This could be discussed with your supplier on the best options. So vegware is a really interesting product and has kind of gained momentum in the last couple of years through sustainability. It's made from plants using renewable, low carbon, recycled and reclaimed materials. It's designed to be commercially compostable with food waste. It's a practical solution for food contaminated disposables. And it also allows food services to achieve their sustainability goals. Now, alternatives to vegware is glass. So glass is a little bit more expensive, but it is reusable. Just factor this cost into your selling price. In my experience, customers love packaging that is reusable and can be presented with minimum effort and still look special, like you would serve it in a restaurant. Now, I want to have a look at the importance of presentation. So presentation shouldn't be underestimated and is key. In this slide, Charles Michel, a chef and educator and chef in residence in the University of Oxford, has conducted an array of studies on the importance of presentation and customers' perception on value for money. It is well worth having a read of some of his published papers from a scientific point of view in how the brain works. This is a great example of an online offering from one of Canada's top restaurants. This is a restaurant called Canoe in Toronto. And this restaurant is pitching a high-end offering focusing on just one dish. In this picture, the attention to detail is apparent. The brush to brush the Wellington with egg wash is branded. The parchment under the Wellington is ready to go into the oven. These are extra touches that make it special. What I love about Canoe's ordering form is that it is clear and concise. It offers options for pickup and delivery. Cut-off times are clearly defined, which helps with the kitchen with purchasing and managing inventory, which reduces waste by not overproducing. It's also taking orders 24 hours a day and can have a wider reach nationwide. Now, with this company, New Beats, what I like about this company is that they set up on a shoestring budget in the height of the pandemic. They offer 2 5-day meal plans, which are posted on Instagram. They also have tapped into the corporate market with offering food boxes to their employees. So Christmas in a box was really successful for them. Menus are posted every Monday and change every week. The menus are meat protein based and plant protein based. This will keep fatigue from setting in. The cutoff point of ordering is Thursday at noon for the weekend delivery, which they use Google Forms. The meal plan is €30 per person with a €3 to €5 cost for the delivery, and payment is taken using Revolut. To summarize, your key takeaways are: understand what menu options work well for your business while driving efficiencies, invest the time and identify and control the costs, explore sustainable packaging options that represent your brand and core values, and recognize the presentation attention to detail that can add value. So for your convenience, I'm going to add in some links here so that you can have a look at the resources that I've used for this presentation in your own time. So it's time for me to practice what I preach. I'm going to show you a video that I done with my wife before Christmas of how to take a restaurant plated dessert and put it in a box. I hope you really enjoy this experience of how you can elevate your food to the next level so that your customers can still enjoy the same experience, the restaurant experience at home. Today we're going to be looking at restaurant plated desserts that travel well as part of a takeout menu. So what I've prepared today is a chocolate, banana and almond panna cotta with glazed cherries and a pumpkin seed granola. So first of all, I'm going to start on the panna cotta. So I've actually replaced the milk with almond milk. I just wanted to take the dairy out of it. So I'm just going to bring that up to a boil. Now for the sugar, I've actually replaced caster sugar with blackened bananas. They're really good for your digestion and they have really good health benefits. So again, it's just having a look at maybe reducing added sugar. Also, I'm using 72% bittersweet dark chocolate, and I have some gelatin that I've soaked in water just to sponge it. So just with the almond milk, I'm just going to bring that up to a boil. And then I'm going to add in my pureed black banana. So it's about 25 grams here. This is just going to add an element of sweetness that we're looking at. And then I'm just going to add in a small drop of vanilla extract. I'm just going to give that a whisk just to break down the banana a little bit more. And I'm going to add in my bittersweet dark chocolate. So I'm just going to leave that alone just maybe for a couple of seconds just so that it starts to melt. In the meantime, I'm going to have a look at my granola. So what I have here is I have oatmeal, pumpkin seeds and cocoa nibs. For this granola, I'm just going to add in a small drop of maple syrup. You can add in honey and some rapeseed oil, some Irish rapeseed oil. Just maybe a teaspoon. Now I'm going to pop this into the oven, and this goes in at about 150 for about 20 to 25 minutes. So what you'll end up after about 25 minutes, you'll end up with your granola, which is nice and crunchy, but also has lots of flavor. So just finishing off our panna cotta, you can see that our chocolate has started to melt. At this stage, I'm going to add in our gelatin. So really what I'm looking to do is just to melt the gelatin. Now finally, I'm just going to strain it into a container so I can pour it into our dishes that we're going to serve it in. Okay, so there we have our chocolate panna cotta. So today I'm going to have a look at serving it in a vehicle, because with the restaurant dessert it's normally plated. It's on a plate, you top it out of a container. This one I've used actually rings. I've topped it with the glazed cherries and the granola. So for this to be able to travel well, we need to put it into a container. So that's probably the biggest barrier that chefs face, is containers and how to replicate their restaurant plated dessert at home. So I've got some interesting containers here. This is a glass container, fully recyclable. Another container that we can use is vegware, so it's plant-based, but again, you're not going to get the same presentation. So I would prefer for something that could actually go on a plate and be served. But for this demonstration, I have used a Kilner style PET jar, so fully recyclable. So this is one that I made earlier. So you can see that this could go on a table, and people would really see that you've put a lot of effort into this. Okay, so next I'm going to start on the cherries. So I'm going to use just some local honey. I'm just going to glaze them with a little bit of honey and some balsamic vinegar. Okay, just maybe a teaspoon of honey, and I have my cherries here. So I've just cut my cherries in half and just took out the pits. So you can just see I'm glazing the cherries in the honey. You only want to do this for maybe 10-15 seconds, and then I'm just going to add in some balsamic vinegar. Now just a small drop of balsamic vinegar, and it just gives it that little bit of acid that I'm looking for, and this will counterbalance the richness of the chocolate. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to take that off the heat and just let it cook away in its own residual heat for another minute or two. So how I would serve this in a container would be to take the cherries, put the cherries on top, and then I would seal that up ready to be packaged and ready to go to your guests. What I would do is I would take the granola and I would put the granola on the side. It just means that it keeps its crispness. And then I would leave instructions or a little video of how to replate this. So for your guests, it would be, they would take the granola and they would empty the contents on top. So there you have it. There's our plated dessert, restaurant style, and also takeaway style as well. So how I would put this in a box is I would basically close it over, and this would be my takeaway box. I think the little touches really make it special and represent your brand. So it's really kind of high end that you're looking for, and the little touches that really make a difference. So a nice envelope with your menu in it would really make a difference, and maybe your branding on the card as well. So it could be something, a special message that you want to send your guests. And then the final touches would be some eucalyptus or some bay leaves, something that has a really nice smell. So visually, the appearance is really important, and first impressions last. So for this, I would just add in my panna cotta into my box, and I would finish it with my card, and then I would box it up. And that would be my ready to go takeaway menu for your guests.
So a huge thank you to Niall, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but does some excellent work with us in Fáilte Ireland. Niall shared a lot of information, and we're going to send that out in your follow-up pack. So if you want to try out the dessert for Valentine's, don't worry, your pack is coming, but importantly, the costing templates and all of the good information about ensuring that food travels well. I'm now going to hand over to Ian Cleary. Ian is from Razor Social and does Trojan work with us in Fáilte Ireland. And Ian, you're practically our resident digital expert at this stage. So over to you.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Thank you, and welcome everybody. It's great to be with you today on this sunny day, or snowy day, actually, not sunny. Okay, so we're going to cover today three things: selling online, driving people to your offers, and then optimizing conversion of those offers. So three very practical topics. So first thing you're going to need, you're selling online, is a shop, and some of you have this shop already, and some of you don't have that shop. So here's a couple of options. WooCommerce is a very flexible platform. You can do so much with WooCommerce, but it's going to require a bit of development costs. So you're going to be reaching out to your agency and ask them to develop it but there's real flexibility in WooCommerce. Shopify, you buy off the shelf. So you go to shopify.com and you can easily set up a Shopify shop. It's a great e-commerce platform, but you'll pay a monthly subscription for the use of Shopify. Now, ECWID has a free version. So if you wanted something up and running very quickly and you didn't have any budget at all, ECWID could be a short-term solution until you got everything up and running properly. But if I was saying which one to recommend, well, if you wanted a lot of flexibility and you had a budget to customize, use WooCommerce. Otherwise, Shopify is a really, really good solution. Now, there's also specific solutions, say, for example, a restaurant solution like FlipDish. The advantage of something like FlipDish is it's built purely for restaurants. So you get a lot more restaurant functionality in there. So FlipDish would integrate with Stripe for payment, and then they would take some commission out of every transaction, and then some money, the rest of the money would go to you. Now, the other advantage of FlipDish is they would integrate with an EPOS system. So your point of sale system, it would integrate as well. So you need to think about, do I need some solution that's specific to a restaurant business like FlipDish, or can I use something like Shopify, which is really about a shop, but it does have a restaurant version, so you can still do all the click and collect stuff as well. So there's lots of good options out there, and you can get up and running very quickly. Now, this often causes confusion about payment. So what you need to get your payment up and running, and it is confusing. So you need a payment gateway and a merchant account to set up, get transactions online. Some of these solutions are combined. So if you go to Stripe, PayPal, or WorldPay, that's a payment gateway and merchant account all in one. So Stripe was set up by two Irish guys. And if you want to set up a Stripe account, I can go to Stripe, I can fill out some details, I'll have an account straight away, and I'll immediately take in transactions. Now, if I want my money to go directly into a normal bank account like AIB or Bank of Ireland, I'm going to need to set up a payment gateway. So I'll go to someone like Relex, and then I'll have to set up a merchant account. So it's a little more effort, a little more form filling to get both of them set up and running. So if you want something up and running quickly, you could go Stripe, PayPal, or WorldPay, and that would get, within a day, you'll be up and running. Or, if you want it going into your bank account like Bank of Ireland or AIB, then you're thinking about a separate payment gateway and a separate merchant account. Okay, so now you've got your shop up and running and you've got a payment system. So now you're ready to drive people to offers you have on your site. Now, we talk about audience temperature a lot. Cold, warm, and hot. So a cold audience member is somebody that's never heard you before, never interacted with you before. It's more expensive selling to a cold audience because you have to educate them about your brand, who you are, and what you do. A warmer audience is somebody that's interacted with you before, may not be a customer, but they may have interacted with you through channels like social media, and they become warm. And hot is somebody that you've identified as somebody that's very interested in buying. They said, for example, yes, when you launch, I want to buy. So what you need to do is you're always building audiences and you want to convert cold into warm and warm into hot. And like I said, social media is a great way of warming up a cold audience. They become a fan on social media, they engage with you on social media, they become warm, and then you make offers to them. So really think about the different audience levels. Now, when you're selling on social media, and social media is about selling, you're looking at this funnel on a 4-stage funnel, and they're all geared towards selling. So you don't skip any of these steps when you're selling on social media. So first of all, attract. You need to attract an audience. You want to keep on growing your fan base on social media. So you're going to share like great content. You're going to demonstrate your personality, share behind the scenes, what's going on behind the scenes, and work with other businesses and do cross promotion with other businesses to really grow that audience. Once you start growing the audience, then you want to engage that audience, because if people are not engaged, then when you do make offers, they won't see them. And social networks reward you for engagement on your platform. So you need to ask questions to get responses, interact with the answers as much as possible. This is a community you're building, so try and interact. Appeal to their emotions, share things that make them happy or make them sad, but really get that interaction going. And the next phase then is nurturing, which is an important step before you make the offer. This again is you're getting people ready for an offer. For example, you're sharing testimonials, and then later on, a couple of days later, you're sharing an offer. Or for example, you are sharing different details about what offers are coming. So you're warning people about offers that are coming soon. So you never present an offer, you let people know about what's coming, you tease them first before you make the offer. And the final bit is convert. This is where you're actually saying, now here's the offer, do you want to buy? Now, all 4 phases are very important in the selling process on social media. It's not all about, here's an offer, here's an offer. Not enough people will see that. Okay, so here's a couple of examples. So this is the Doe brothers, and I really like their social profile and what they do online. They're sharing a 3-pizza home kit, and here is they're attracting and converting at the same time. So they're making an offer for this 3-pizza home kit, but they're also saying, tag your pizza pals, you know, in this. And there's like about 500 likes and tons of comments in here where people are tagging people that they know likes pizza. Very smart, and they've done very well with these type of offers. So you're attracting an audience, you're growing your audience, but also converting. Now, when you want to attract an audience on Instagram, your feed needs to look really good, and Gourmet Food Parlour are really good at this. If you can look at this, you can see there's a consistent look and feel, design, color, theme to all their pictures. It looks really professional. This is what attracts an audience on Instagram. So take a look at what they do in terms of their grid on Instagram to get some ideas. Engage, ask questions. It's a simple thing. This is just asking questions about which drink you prefer. You know, ask a question where it's A or B, yes or no. Simple things that drive engagement. You want to encourage that interaction with your audience as much as possible. A live event, this is a cookery school. So if you're in a cookery school, could you run a live event? What I love about live events is you get to know the personality of the people, you get to know the brand. And we've seen a great video from Niall there. You know, I get more of a feel for what Niall does. I'm more interested in his food. I'm more tempted to look at his website now from seeing live. So it could be live or a recorded event, but that really helps with engagement. The nurture phase, like I said, is not one to miss out on. Nurturing before you offer the sell. So here, you know, the Freckles girl has shared a really good testimonial about a food brand. So before they generate the sale, they're sharing these testimonials. On the right-hand side, we have Saba here. And what Saba are doing is encouraging people to join their newsletter list. Now, they do that because you move from social onto newsletter, and now you can create a sequence of emails which makes offers in the email. You need to do cross promotion across different channels, get Facebook fans onto email, get email subscribers onto Facebook, do as much cross promotion of that as possible. And then finally, you start making offers. So here's like offers for occasions like a Valentine's Day 7-course dinner, you know, so there's going to be plenty of these offers out. On the right hand side, this was for the Super Bowl. So it doesn't have to be something that everybody enjoys. I don't watch the Super Bowl, but I'll still be attracted to a Super Bowl offer. You know, so you just want to attract people to these type of offers. I've seen a beer company doing a Biden box before. Now, I don't know whether you're doing a Trump impeachment box, but there was a Biden box that people did. So you think about what's happening in the news, what are the important events, and lash onto them. Think about Valentine's Day, Easter's Day, but also think about coming up with themes and names for a promotion, you know, and run that as a campaign. And that can really drive your sales forward if you come up with a good name for your promotion. Collaborations, collaborate with other businesses. Again, this is the Doe brothers, and they're saying they were burning to announce that they have partnered up with Guinness for promotion. And then, you know, in the next hour, they shared this. They can't believe we sold out in under an hour. Madness. Collaborations are great. Think about who you can collaborate with. You know, can food and drink, can you collaborate together? How can you collaborate and drive more promotions and awareness? And don't forget your blog content. Your blog content can be really powerful to, you know, share more details on your website to drive more relevant traffic to your site. This is a butcher's, and they're sharing details of the type of food you can make with your meat. And last but not least, for social media, make sure you're sharing your passion, not just content. People want to hear about you. They want to see behind the scenes. They want to interact with you. They want to see how passionate you are, and passion will generate you sales. Okay, so I want to swap over now to a quick video from Kieran Fitzgerald, Blue Haven, Claire Nash from Nash 19, and Gary and Mairead Anderson from Boathouse and Shack, where they'll show you a bit of innovation, a bit of collaboration, and actually just taking action. So let's have a look at this video.
We turned our mind to something that we had wanted to do for a long time, which was to develop the restaurant in the Blue Haven. And we could never do that with the loading that was on it when we got busy from all the different areas. But we took lockdown 2 as the opportunity to be able to do that. And I think, again, the business long term will benefit from that. I think, the legacy of it, while, it's a huge amount of negatives and it's been a complete roller coaster 12 months, the positives are that we've, developed a new restaurant product for the Blue Haven that we may not have been able to do if we were open, 24/7 all the time. So we looked at automating a lot of our process and procedures. We worked with Ubiquity to put all our processes and SOPs onto an app. We found that very effective. We completely feng shuied the business. We looked at all areas of the business, both physical, digital, process, procedures, everything. So there are things that are the positives to take out of what we did.
We decided that we would put in for a joint application of use of the street. We came up with the concept of an initiative, Eat on the Street, which was mine, Eat on Princess Street. We've hashtags around that now. We have its own management company now, and it's going from strength to strength. We invested time, money, and a lot of steady negotiation with council and other stakeholders. Meanwhile, we were getting to the stage that we're going to get back open. So we decided we'd get the same tables. I went off and found a nice hire scenario for us, so that at least we looked a little uniform and that we had a different kind of vibe going on. More than anything, it was a shoulder-to-shoulder approach that you really needed. It wasn't to just attract that customer from coming into me or coming into you. It was actually survival mode. I would advise that they would say yes to anything, joined in discussion with their next door neighbours or their peers or their colleagues. And for the first time, to let down your guard of competition, because shared advice and shared worries and shared knowledge is always kind of solved problems.
There's a nervousness in the economy, and I think that so many people have had reduced income for the last 9 months that the same resilience isn't in the economy in 2021 to bounce the way we did in 2020.
Yeah, people are definitely nervous. They definitely don't have the same, I suppose, was it a bit exciting, I guess, the first time? Is this the one and only time we're going to get 6 weeks off and where we can, nobody knew what was happening. And yeah, now again, everyone is a little bit more fatigued with the whole thing, and definitely everybody's a little bit more nervous.
It is to continue to offer a product that the customers want to buy. Do your takeaways, cover your costs. Don't get elaborate, don't make it complicated, do things that you can do well.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video. Okay, one thing to don't forget about when you're driving traffic is in terms of SEO. SEO is search engine optimization, and it's a way of driving traffic free to your website. So I'm just going to cover off a couple of practical tips for SEO. First of all, create content about what people are searching for. Uber suggests is a useful tool to find out what people are searching for, and there's a free version there, so you can check all the different keywords that people are searching for, and then you can create content about that. Another quick tip is that find the pages on your website with the most traffic, that's through Google Analytics, and then put a little promotional offer with a link back to a landing page. And what I'm talking about a landing page is it's a page that you've created just for a specific promotion. So you find your high traffic pages and you link that back to that landing page. That'll drive more traffic, but it'll also help that landing page rank higher. The second tip is if you're not using Yoast SEO plugin, that is a useful tool to use. It's a free tool and you can use it on WordPress, and it just basically gives you a little checklist. You can see here there's orange, red, and green icons. Once you've got green, that means your content is optimized correctly. So it's an easy way to optimize your content correctly, and it will help you drive more traffic. Okay, let's move on to the last section about optimizing results. So you've created your shop, you've set up your payment, and then you've driven people to your site, but now you want to optimize your results and actually get more sales. First of all, simple is the best. Make your calls to action very simple and make it easy for people to understand what to do next. For example, on tenders here, you can see in the top right, get my food delivered with a delivery button. I'm in the area with a click and collect button. Just make it very simple. That's where we have issues, when it's complicated and people don't know what to do next. Have very clear calls to action. Email is super, super important. I was watching a demo for one of the top e-commerce experts in the world, and he said he was generating 33% of sales just from email. So email is like saving. You're building that audience, so you're ready to sell through that audience. We worked with a tour brand recently as part of a Fáilte Ireland event, and they came back and said the first order came in 2 minutes after I sent the newsletter, and then they kept on trickling in all day long. So, and that was just for a tip to say, start using your newsletter and start emailing people. Well, the thing about it is think about it not just as sign up to my newsletter in your footer. That's not good enough. This, and on Cardigans, what they do is say, join a rewards club and get 10% off our first order. It's a rewards club now, it's not a newsletter. On the right-hand side, it shows you all the different benefits of joining the rewards club. So you get points for additional, you know, times you purchase, you get free shipping at times if you build up enough points. This is encouraging repeat business. So think about the newsletter and go, right, let's create an awards club so that you'll actually get higher conversion and also generate more sales. Selling through email. Email is a great tool for selling to as well. For example, if somebody signs up for an offer and say, hey, sign up to my rewards club for offers, we'll then automatically send them an email and welcome them and make them an offer, you know, and then maybe this second email a couple of days later, you provide some blog content with a recipe, for example, and then you might subtly make the offer again. And then you can actually put them into the newsletter after this. So creating those email sequences and follow-up emails does generate a lot of sales. So you may not be using email enough, and you should for sure. Now, scaling up with ads, when you have something that works, that's the time to start investing in ads. So it's not really about investing something that you're not sure whether it works or not. You're running an offer on Facebook and people are buying. Well, now you might consider scaling up with ads. Now you need to work out in terms of, on the left-hand side, how much it's going to cost for somebody to click on the ad. And many visitors are going to get to my landing page where I have a specific offer. And then there's going to be a bunch of people who will go to the checkout page, and at each stage, people are dropping out. So then you have a thanks for booking page at the end. So you might end up with 200 visitors, but you only end up with 10 customers. Then you need to start working out, well, am I actually making profit from this? So I have 10 sales, my cost of sales is 750, my cost ads is 150, and my net profit is 600. So work out all the costs and the results, and now you can see, can you scale that up? But just remember that advertising is scaling up an offer that works, not promoting an offer that doesn't. So you never invest in an ad when you're sharing it out, sharing out details of the offer on social media. Nobody's buying. Well, don't promote that offer. Wait till you see it getting traction and then put some money into it. Shipping incentives generate sales. It's one of the biggest factors for e-commerce sales, and lack of sales is the shipping costs. Now, you may not always be able to provide free shipping, but you could provide incentives like this: free delivery on your first order, or free delivery when it's over a certain price, or package up your price and include delivery in it. It is a big deterrent to the shipping costs for people buying. Number 6, scarcity generates sales. You know, use this more often. An early bird offer is where you say, listen, we're going to launch something tomorrow. That's nurturing. Okay, so we're preparing people, we're priming the list. We're going to launch something tomorrow, and we're going to make an early bird offer for the first 5 people that buy. And that starts the process of people buying. Or you say there's limited to X bookings or X number of dishes that you have. We've only 50 dishes at this price available. There's only a certain amount left. It's a 24-hour offer. Don't be afraid to come up with an offer where you say it's only available for 24 hours. Package up something differently and try it. But you have to be ready for this. So you say it's 24 hours now, and then you say, oh, there's 10 sold, there's only 12 hours left, there's only 6 hours left, 5 minutes left. So you build up a bit of momentum, have a bit of fun with it, and people will buy getting close to deadlines. One of the biggest issues online is me saying, why buy now? You know, and you need to give me a reason why I buy now rather than wait till tomorrow or the next day. And it's not about fake scarcity, it's real scarcity where you say, no, actually, we only have 50 of these meal kits or whatever it is. Number 7, last but not least, track your results. You need to track your results. A lot of these platforms, the likes of Shopify, you can add e-commerce tracking on. Very simply, that adds this tracking into Google Analytics. So you go to Google Analytics, in this screenshot it's in dollars, but you can have it in euro, and you can show the revenue you generated versus the visitors, and then you can start looking at your conversion rates. So really important to have that e-commerce testing set up, that tracking, and it's very straightforward to set up. So lots of practical tips there in terms of how you would, you know, get set up initially, you know, start driving people to your site and then start converting. If you follow some of these tactics, you will generate more sales. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do now is pass you on to Olivia Collins, our PR expert, and she's going to talk about PR. So thanks very much, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ian. So I'm going to talk to you about something that I find quite exciting, and it's about getting media coverage for your product or for your food service. I believe right now it's probably one of the best times that you can go out there and get some media exposure for your brand. You'll hear later on from our media panel, they're super supportive of the industry. They want to hear the news stories that you have. So I'd really encourage you to maybe look to doing PR in getting that story out there. And I'm going to show you now in the next few minutes how you can do this yourself. I'm going to try and blow the lid off PR and take the mystery out of it. I'm going to show you how you can secure the media coverage. I'm going to show you how you can write for media, which is sometimes a major stumbling block for people when they go to approach their PR. We're going to talk about the importance of imagery. We're going to talk about communicating with the media, and we're also going to talk about how to use social media in your PR efforts. So the key topics I'm going to cover is we're going to kind of delve into the PR consultant's toolbox. Some pretty simple things, press release, I'm sure you're all familiar with what that is, the photography and a press drop. And then, like I said, we'll take a look at media and social media and how they interact together. So I'm going to start off by telling you, sometimes I hear a lot from people, they think that PR is really for the celebrity chefs or for the big brands, or they feel like they're too small, or they feel like their story maybe doesn't warrant press coverage. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about Jump Juice. Jump Juice are obviously a range of jump juice bars around the country, and obviously no more than everybody else, they closed down for a lot of the months last year. But this idea of the reset, which happened, gave them time to kind of reevaluate what they were doing, and they developed this range of products, which was an online juice delivery. So you could go online, you could order your juices, and for the first time they engaged in a PR campaign to do this. And so I'm just going to show you a little bit of the type of press coverage that they got just from doing a fairly simple PR campaign back in November. They got over 35 pieces of press coverage, and they appeared on TV, they appeared on radio. There's Charlie and Claire, their husband and wife team. And the results were quite phenomenal for them. But again, this isn't unusual when you're doing a PR campaign and when you're using the guidelines that I'm going to show you how to use. Here's just something that Charlie had said. So he had said he'd been trading for over 18 years in the quick service food and beverage space, and they had become used to a local promotional formula that worked. And I think that's a key point here, because sometimes we can get set in our own marketing strategies that work, And we know COVID has left us in a space where we're feeling maybe a bit more vulnerable, but we're also in a space where we can recreate what it is we're doing. We can restart our marketing strategies. And this is something that Charlie realized he needed to do. He said after they pivoted into cold pressed juices and smoothies direct to consumers, they realized quickly they needed to do something differently. And National Pure had to become an integral part of their communication strategy. The result of their PR campaign meant that they're now months ahead of their projections, and on top of that, the coverage has managed to open doors that they wouldn't expect to open. And again, I think for me, this is a very key point here, is that often you'll see occasions like Valentine's Day, for example. Sure, it's a once-off date, but what can often happen from getting media coverage is it'll open opportunities that you may not have thought about before. And it also helps develop relationships with media that when there's another occasion coming up or you have another news story, you have the relationship already there. So I'd say don't underestimate what a PR campaign can do. On that note, I'm going to stop briefly for a moment and we're going to play a video by Niall Hill, and he's going to talk about his food truck, the Salty Boy. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Niall.
It's been interesting. It's been challenging. It's been exciting. It's not exactly obviously what I think myself or anybody else wants to do, to constantly having to pivot. The amount of pivoting hasn't been ideal, because there's been an awful lot of changes, but it's kept us open, it's kept us operational. We've actually increased our staffing levels since it. So all in all, it's good. Hopefully things will get back to normal soon. We can resume our normal business model, but also keep on these new revenue streams. It's been good to, I suppose, to be forced to diversify, which I suppose has been key during all this process. As a chef restaurant owner, I took the decision back in March to keep my restaurants closed until next March. So right now they'll remain closed. With SSI and obviously with Salty Boy and things like that, new revenue streams for that. We're about to launch our new hampers today. So SSI is going to launch a range of hampers, also a range of suppers, and then we've also launched a member subscription box. So it's a weekly, so people can give the gift of seafood all year, and it's basically a weekly or bi-weekly seafood box that gets delivered to households. So there are, I suppose, our main three elements that we're about to launch now. Advice for other businesses out there, I suppose the greatest bit of advice that I ever give to anybody in this type of thing is, there's always issues in business. I think the main thing is not to focus on the problem, 100% recognize the problem, but look for the solutions and find the solutions. If you find the solutions and you look for the solutions, it's a lot more positive than dwelling on just the negative. So realize that there's an issue, realize what that issue is, and then immediately, like straight away, start looking for solutions. And a lot of positivity will come out of that, and I find that drives myself and my team forward faster. When we're looking for solutions, then it becomes an exciting, positive thing rather than focusing on negative.
Now, I hope you enjoyed that. As I said before, Niall has had some wonderful media coverage in the past, and that constant space of innovating and being creative, and that's really what media are looking for. So we're going to dive straight into the PR tools that you're going to want to be using. Briefly mentioned them before: the press release, your imagery, pest drops, and your social media. So first off, we're going to look at the press release, and often that's the one that fills most people with fear. And I often imagine, somebody, for example, Gillian, who made an appearance for us earlier, calling up a brand going, listen, we have a beautiful spot for you next weekend, can you send us in a quick press release? And the terror that must then be filled by the person on the other side of that who's working in food service, realizing the opportunity that they have open to them, but also feeling that fear of how do I write for media? So there is no mystery to it, and I think the thing is to keep it really simple. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to write that compelling press release. So first of all, you want to write a press release when you have news. So not necessarily when you want to write a press release, but when you feel that there's something new happening. It could be a new service, a new venue, a new collaboration, anything like that. So just to make sure that it's got a news angle to it. Start off by putting the basic information onto a sheet, what it is you want to articulate. Very simple, the what, the who, the how. Put your logo up on top and then start from there. And what I always do when I'm writing press releases is I ask the question why, and this will give context to your press release, but it'll also give the press release some texture. So say, for example, you were collaborating with a food producer. Why did you choose that food producer to collaborate? If you're collaborating with another chef, if you decided you were going to develop a food truck, for example, why did you decide to do this? So it just gives a bit more depth to the press release. You want to stick to the facts, and the information cannot be subjective and it must be factual. You want to avoid overusing adjectives like amazing, delicious, wonderful, the best. And again, this is something that a lot of people will fall into the trap of. Just avoid all of those types of adjectives, because you want to be talking like a journalist and not necessarily a salesperson. So if you think of it like that, you're writing this piece as if you're the journalist, not a salesperson. If you do want to use those kind of marketing pitches, or you do feel like your sourdough is made with the best ingredients there are out there, you can do that in a quote. And I do this as a kind of a trick as well with the press releases. So say, for example, Baker John says he believes that our sourdough is the best sourdough in the west of Ireland. By putting it into a quote, you're still getting your message out there in that terms, but it's not necessarily the opinion of the journalist that you're going to write the press release for. Obviously, you want to date your press release. If your press release needs to be embargoed, you need to put that fairly clearly on top. Now, the reason you might use an embargo is, for example, if you're pitching to the long leads, and what we call long leads are the likes of often the monthly publications, they would have copy deadlines that run 6 to 8 weeks in advance. So if you want to get into a magazine that's in 2 months' time, you want to be putting your press release in now. Now, a lot of these publications will also have an online element. So say, for example, you were pitching now for something that you had coming up in Easter. You might want to put an embargo on that until you were ready to be able to sell it online. So say, for example, the middle of March. So that's maybe why you might use an embargo on that. And you want to put that fairly clearly in there. Obviously, you want to title and save your file appropriately. So a press release plus the abbreviated title. It's fairly obvious, but if a journalist wants to go back and find that press release that they got from you a few weeks ago, just make sure that you have the title fairly simple and it's relevant to what's in the press release. When you're sending your press release, you want to save it and send it via email and as a PDF attachment. We use PDFs just because we use Google Docs. Other people use Word. Other people use different types of software to write up their documents. If you're attaching it as a PDF, the chances are it won't get corrupted. Now, another thing that we also do is when we are sending press releases out to the media, we do our cover note and we briefly tell them what's in the press release. We'll copy and paste the text from the press release and we'll put it in to the body of the email. This means that when a media gets the email, they can quickly scan to see what the press release is about, and then obviously you have your PDF of the press release attached anyway. Just going to show you that once you do decide to put a little bit of effort into the press release, and I should point out at this stage as well, there is a template press release that you can download after the presentations. They'll be in the resource centre and the Fáilte Ireland team will send them to you. So there is a template press release that I have done up, so you can just add in your details, fill in the gaps as such, and that'll develop you a press release. Once you put your time into the press release, it's important to know that yes, while you're sending it out to the media contacts that you have developed, you can also use it for other things like putting it up on your blog. Ian was talking earlier about the importance of that. Putting it up on LinkedIn, which I feel is a really underused resource and platform, particularly if you're targeting the corporates. And also, you can use the body of the email and the same essence of the email to target different media groups. So, for example, international market. And I've given you an example here of one that we did for Good Food Ireland. And I'll just quickly show you the difference in the headlines that we used. And essentially, that's really all we changed. So the one for the international market would have said, introducing a new way to explore Ireland. The one for national, experience the best with Good Food Ireland. And then you've got your regionals, and these are really important. The regional press are still as strong as ever, and they're so supportive of local businesses. And so for your regional, you can just tweak it and edit the headline so it becomes a bit more customized to them. So this one was experience the best of Cork food with Good Food Ireland. So ideally what you're trying to do is you've got one piece of resource, which is your press release, and you just want to maximize it and get the most amount of coverage as you can. Now you'll see there with these press releases that the imagery is really important. And as a PR, one of the big things that we look for is how strong is the imagery that we're presented with. If the imagery isn't strong, does the client have a budget where we can go and get new photography taking? Particularly in the space we're in. We're in the food space, and it's such an aesthetic space to be in. When you see a beautiful image of food, immediately it's more appealing. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the importance of imagery in PR. And I'm going to give you some tips on this. So when you're looking at doing photography, just to understand, like I said, a strong image with a weak story is better than a strong story with a weak image. What you want to make sure is when you're getting your photography done, and we have found that once we started to do this with press releases, we were getting a much bigger pickup on the press releases in terms of the media coverage. We would take some of the nicest imagery, and you can see there I'm using Jump Juice again. You've got Claire and Charlie, and you've got the product shots. We would place them in a header above the press release. So it meant that when the journalist was getting our press release, immediately they could see the quality of the photography that we also had that was going with it. And sometimes that can be the tipping point into whether they'd run the story or not. And you want to choose your photography wisely, or photographer wisely, should I say. I can't tell you the amount of times that we've been told that they have a friend who's a wedding photographer or someone who's just got a great camera that lives next door. That's not going to work. You're gonna want some good photography for media to make it worth your while at all. There are things like a press photographer who are mainly kind of people shots, and then you've got a product photographer who'll take those types of shots. In this instance, the photographer did both the people shot, Charlie and Claire, and he also did the product shots. When doing people shots, you want to make sure that there's no more really than 3 people to appear in the photographs. Once you go over 3 people, it begins to look like a bit of a lineup, and it doesn't really work for PR. Use people when suitable, particularly in food. We find that with food, the people behind the food is nearly as important as the food itself. So don't be afraid to come from behind the counter and get shot with it. Do a variety of PR shots and the product shots. That's what we're kind of talking about there, the products and the PR shots. And you want to set out the list of photos you want in advance. So if you're getting a photographer, make use of the photographer. Do up a photography brief. And you might think to yourself, actually, we never got a headshot of our head chef. We'll include that in it. Or actually, we might start looking now for our Easter shots and include some of those dishes in it. I'm going to give you a template again at the end of this, which is a photography brief. So again, you can just fill in the gaps there for that, and it serves as a starting point for your photographer, and also kind of directs them in terms of the shots you want and the key messages that you want to get out within your imagery. And also finally, you want to ask for portrait and landscape options. So sometimes in media, depending on the layout of the page, a portrait shot might work better than a landscape shot. But at least if you have those options in your file, you're giving the media that opportunity. So here's some example of images that we have used, and of course I've kept them nice and pink and Valentine-y, and actually we've used all of these in Valentine's campaigns in the past. So it makes such a difference. I really can't stress enough the importance of the photography. The 2 images down at the end there, I just kind of put them in there just to kind of as a prompt to say, obviously, professional photography when you're going to print media is really important, and media in general. But imagery is just as important on your social media, and we've heard other speakers talk about importance of social media and selling your product. Another tip sheet that I'm going to have for you as a download is how to take good photography with your phone. Often you'll see these type of things, groups of food put together, and taking a photograph from the top down works really well. So make sure to check out that tip sheet, so it'll send you in the right direction. Something you might want to do, and when it comes to occasion PR. So by occasion PR, I mean like Valentine's Day, Easter, Father's Day, that type of thing. The beauty of using these occasions for PR is that you know when it's happening. You know Valentine's Day is the 14th of February every year, and You might not know this, but Pancake Tuesday is 2 days after that. So these types of occasions give an opportunity of brands to really package up something well in advance. Media are always looking for stories that are timely. So say, for example, you want to run your Valentine's Day. If you started that seriously in the first week of January, you can be guaranteed that you'll be getting a lot of press coverage about it now. So you want to start early. One little tool that works quite well in these type of scenarios are what's called press drops. And essentially a press drop is where you're sending samples to the press. It can be very effective, but you just want to follow maybe a couple of key guidelines to make sure that you're getting it right. So very simple things. You want to start by deciding, first of all, how many you want to gift. So you'll either decide maybe you've got 15 samples that you want to give out, or you'll take a look at your media list and go, there's 20 key journalists there that I want to send samples to. You want to give advance notice of the intent. So you want to tell them that you're intending on sending them something, plus the delivery date that it can be expected. You want to request the best delivery address. Obviously, most people now are working from home. So in the media, in my experience, has been quite good at actually giving us those addresses so that you can send something directly to their home address. You want to give yourself plenty of time between requesting the address and the date of the delivery. So if you're planning on your press drop happening on a Friday, make sure you're not asking for the address on the Thursday. Give them a little bit of time to respond. And then decide what note you'll be placing with the media drop. I quite like a handwritten note or even a hand-signed note. I think Paul had mentioned this earlier. That little personal touch can make such a difference. And the fact that you're sending this to media and you want to develop that relationship with them, I think those little touches make such a difference. On your note, you also want to include your social media handle, which will encourage them to thank you online and give you a little shout out. And optional but effective is to include the copy of that wonderful press release that you've written as well. And ideally, you want to make sure that they land at the same time, purely just that you want to have a little bit of impact online. So if they're landing at the same time, you tend to get that a little bit more. Here are some examples of media kind of given press drops shout outs online. I quite like this one with that Karina Cardgrave had done. It was the Pretzel Bakery and Irish Gourmet Butter. Both of them were marking their wins at Blossom Heron Awards. So both of them got together in this perfect collaboration of butter and bread. Fabulous. This one here is Lucinda O'Sullivan, and she's got Le Patisserie, who had sent her some beautiful Valentine's Day bakery goods. And I just want you to note the date on that. That's January 29th. So there was plenty of time given between when obviously Le Patisserie were looking to kind of get orders in for their Valentine's offering and when they sent out their press drop. And then I also wanted to mention is that you don't necessarily have to have a product in order to do a press drop. This one here, and Mary Claire gave them a shout out, was from the Grayson Hotel. And what they wanted to do was mark their afternoon tea. So what they did was they sent a bunch of flowers and a lovely bottle of rosé to mark their afternoon tea. So as you can see, social media it can be a very effective tool in terms of leveraging your PR coverage. And one of the tools that is used quite well in media is Twitter. And it's also one, I think, that when it comes to social media, a lot of people have a bit more of a resistance to. Some of you may be on Twitter, some of you may not be on Twitter, but I'd really encourage you all to get on Twitter. You don't necessarily have to be extremely active on it, but once you're there, you'll be exposed to things like this, which is what I call the low-hanging fruit, where you can engage with media, where media are coming and looking for stories that they're going to push out. You can see things here. Again, Karina Hardgrave here was looking for restaurants, who's back in action, looking for update on restaurant meal kits, deliveries, takeaways in Ireland, email in bio, please RT. So she's asking, tell me what it is you're doing. So if you're not on this, you're missing out. And if you are doing deliveries and meal kits, again, you've got Katie McGuinness down there looking for restaurants, Donegal, Laois, Louth. Super important. Get on there and follow these accounts so that you can see there's a little, once you're on Twitter, there's a little alarm icon, and you can press that on each of those bios so you'll get an alert whenever any of them tweet. The other challenge that you might find is, and that we get presented with is, no, I couldn't do my own PR because I don't have the contacts. And again, I just want to show you how super quick it is to have those contacts. Like I said, again, back to Twitter. If you go onto these Twitter profiles, you'll see that their email addresses are in their bios. So there's really no excuse not to be picking up on these. And once you put together your media contact list, then you have it for your next campaign and your next campaign. So I'm going to finish up on that. Just a reminder that the downloads, again, are going to be available after the presentation. You're going to have your press release template, you're going to have your photography template, and you're going to have your tips on taking photography. So I really hope you use them. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in press and getting you guys the much needed press coverage that you deserve. Now, without further ado, I'm going to call on our media panel and our esteemed guests, one of whom were very enthusiastic earlier coming online. We've got Aoife Carrigy, who's a freelance food journalist, author and editor. She's a wine columnist of the Irish Independent. We've got Ali Dunworth, who's a food writer and Irish Times journalist. And we've got Gillian Nealis, managing editor of the Sunday Business Post, editor of Food and Wine. And we also have Orla O'Brien, who is doing some live scribing for us. And what Orla is going to be doing is she is going to be capturing our key points and highlights of our discussion, and her finished masterpiece will be available afterwards in the resource session. So welcome everybody.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Apologies for my early entry.
It was lovely to see your face, Gillian, always. I was going to start off maybe by kind of getting your opinions and I suppose your general observations. Obviously, it's been such a difficult time for everybody in this industry. And I'd really like to maybe hear from you guys in terms of how you felt the industry has evolved over the last 11 months. You know, dealing with what it is that we're dealing with. I might start with you, Aoife, on that one.
Sure, yeah. Well, I suppose first of all, it's been, I think it's been exemplary in terms of the response, both creatively and pragmatically. And I've been in continuous awe of businesses, their ability to pivot, to take an imaginative approach and so on. But I think it's really worth remembering that we were actually coming from such a strong place in that we were at such an exciting point in our food story, in our evolving food story, the creativity, the energy, the engagement from consumers, and that has all really stood to people. So I think what has happened is that actually a lot of changes that were already on their way have been accelerated. So for example, the merging of social drinking and dining, the small pubs under pressure to adapt and evolve, or risk going under, that consumer desire to support local business and so on, the impact of technology. So all those things were already happening. I think what will be interesting now is for businesses to look ahead at what changes are coming down the line. So for example, what is the impact of our change in our consumption and purchasing of wine? How will that impact on restaurants in the long term? You know, will restaurants be able to have the same margin on wine that they used to now that people are buying their wine online, are trading up on wine? So I think it'll be really interesting to see the long-term impact and the medium-term impact. Also things like the food trucks, how that's going to impact on restaurants, even restaurants who aren't going to get into the food truck thing themselves, but how that's going to change how we relate to food on the go and where and when we think it's, you know, we can dine. It's not just on site or at home. So I think, you know, obviously it's been an incredibly painful, challenging year, but it's also very exciting to see all those changes going on.
And you're right, it's going to be interesting to see where this does lead us. Gillian, on to you, your kind of observations.
Yeah, well, I think we're all kind of experts in change management now. I think after the year we've had, I think for me, what was very interesting because obviously our interest in covering the sector is kind of lifestyle and business, and just the jolt it gave people to start selling online. I mean, there's still an incredible statistic about the number of Irish SMEs who don't have a website, don't have an online shop. And I suppose this was one of those situations where people just had to do it.
and they had to do it quickly. And that was really interesting, because I've kind of bored the pants off people for years, saying to them, you know, you don't need a massively, you know, involved website. You don't need loads of graphics. You don't need loads of bells and whistles. You just need something simple that does the job. So it was very interesting to see people like Velvet Cloud and Le Patisserie, you know, getting online quickly, being able to do it really well. So it you know, I suppose if there's one advantage out of the year, it maybe forced a lot of us in whatever business we're in to stop putting off that thing that we knew we should be doing.
Absolutely. And, you know, the work that's gone into it now will stand to them post-COVID. And you're right, you have been ringing that bell for a long time about the website.
Yeah,
Ali,
I used to say
you?
that get a website would be on my gravestone. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Aoife and Gillian. The resilience and the creativity and like the support, I think, really struck me. That I think from National IT, she said there about sort of getting over the competitiveness and people sharing information, and local restaurants using more like local suppliers, which they were doing anyway, but that's what the customers are looking for now. I've definitely noticed that people I know who were a little bit into food and maybe ate out a lot became much more conscious of where they were shopping and where they were ordering from. And everyone's asking for recommendations. We all have WhatsApps full of, what did you order this week? We're shopping from farms, we're shopping directly from suppliers that we never did before. And I think that's really cool, that I suppose whether you love or hate the word foodie, that it might have created more foodies within locally in Ireland, which is brilliant, and people really recognizing how exciting the Irish food is at the moment. Well, it always is, but yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gillian, what do you think that consumers are looking for now? What's kind of the appetite out there?
Yeah, well, I think even before I suppose we get into the actual food and wine offering, I know from a personal perspective, I have been much more nervous and anxious during the third wave of this pandemic than I was before. I'm definitely more risk averse. So if I go into a premises, be that a shop or a takeaway or a coffee shop, and I see anything even remotely dodgy on the safety front, I'm out of there. And I think a lot of people are now. I think people got a real fright after Christmas. So I think people will need to be minded and be kind of feel that sense that they're being looked after, and all of the safety precautions are going to be there for them. And you know, I think we all really want to get back into doing those lovely things that we took for granted, like going out for dinner and having a pint. But, you know, I think we've all probably been a little bit scarred by what's happened. So people are, I think, going to be a bit cautious. They will expect absolute compliance on the safety end, but I think they are, you know, they're ready, I think, to have that comfort again of you know, hospitality. That's what it is. It's people looking after you. It's people giving you a nice experience. So I think people are definitely ready for that once the environment is what it needs to be.
Sure. Just going back to kind of what we were talking about, or what, you know, I suppose the seminar is about, the e-commerce and kind of, you know, and getting that exposure out there as well. And sometimes we see in media, there's some of the restaurants and some of the faces that appear quite regularly, and fair dues to them, fair play to them. Aoife, can I ask you, you know, can you give us some examples maybe of restaurants that do media relations consistently well, and what it is that they're doing, I suppose, to get them that kind of that exposure that they're getting?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a few different things. So if I think of people that I have some people that I know I can call up, I can send them a text, and they will get straight back to me. And if they can, they absolutely will give me their time. So I'm thinking of people like Ross Lewis, Nevin Maguire, Brigitte Curtin of Burn Smokehouse, incredibly hard workers, really generous with their time, great with the soundbite. Then there's people like, there's the kind of social media darlings. So there's people that I can follow on social media. They're constantly providing fresh content, and that gives me ideas for fresh angles. So Jess Murphy, JP McMahon, Niall Sabongi, who's been mentioned previously. Some of those might be experts in a niche area. So like Niall would be, you know, if I need somebody to speak to me about seafood or sustainability of seafood, there are several people I can think of calling. I know Niall will get straight back to me, and I know he'll give me the soundbite again, you know. And then there's kind of the people that just are really good for the quirky, fun stories that sometimes you want to throw in there. Like I did a piece for Gillian actually on hampers before Christmas for Food and Wine, and I threw in Kyo's The Bucket of Crisps. you know, and Gillian was kind of laughing at that. Like, their shows are brilliant for giving you the laugh, you know, for their spud nav, for just something a little bit different. So I suppose there can be lots of different things. Like, not all of those people would be contacting me. Like, some of those would be, you know, the shows would be sending me the great press releases. But the likes of Niall Spongy, I don't think I've ever got a press release off. Maybe I have, but I don't need the press release from him, you know. So I suppose it depends. There's lots of different ways of coming at it.
Sure. And is it a case, Aoife, that you're finding these on Twitter? You're seeing these online. So if you hadn't, we'd say, come across them, is it that you're using Twitter to find these brands?
It's a mix. I mean, I do think press releases are really important for, you know, for building that relationship, and, you know, all the things that you were saying, Olivia, about, you know, having the photo, like, that is so crucial. When I was looking after the drinks news page for Image Interiors, I couldn't put a story in if it didn't have a photo. Whereas now, actually, on my wine column, I have a little slot for a news story that I don't need a photo for, which gives me a lot more freedom. But just kind of knowing those things. But yeah, I suppose I would use social media to kind of connect myself in with stories, but also the press releases is extremely important as well.
Okay. Ali, I'm going to ask you a question that is the bane of the life of every PR consultant out there. And once these lists come out, we go, oh, Jesus, we start waiting for the phone to ring. How do restaurants get on these top 100 lists, and who do we need to pay to get on them?
I think, like, there's a myth that, you know, there's a magic formula. You mentioned nurturing and relationships, and I think a few people did, and that's really important. So it is not just thinking about what list do I want to be on, how do I do that? It's about well, firstly, figure out what list you do want to be on, and figure out who writes those lists, because that information is there, and then target those people to make relationships with them. And people do message and say, why was I not on that? Or why did I not get into this? And it's not really the best way to approach things. But then start engaging with those people, sharing their stories with them, and just being consistent. I know from all the information that's come out in the last hour, it's probably overwhelming if you haven't done any PR or you haven't done much on social media, and to pick the avenue that you're most comfortable with to start with and start to nurture that. So if it's Twitter for you, work on that. If it's Instagram for you, work on that, and you can build up from there. Sorry, Aoife.
Aoife, you wanted to add?
No, just what you were saying about building the relationship. I remembered a number of years back working with the Chameleon, with Kevin and Carol and the Chameleon. They said, we think we've got a really good offer, but nobody really knows about us, or they do, but they think, oh God, you know, that's yesterday's news or whatever. So he said, how do I approach the media? And we worked together to just create a dinner where we invited people along, and there was no big sell. It was just like, please come along, and, you know, if you'd like to write about it, it's great. But it started those relationships, and then within a few years, and they started, you know, building on that and getting really active on social media. And within a few years, they were on those lists, you know. So it's remembering that it's a slow build sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of people will maybe do a tick box and send stuff out, but they mightn't have sent a press release with something they send you, or they mightn't follow up and say, did you like that product? How was it? And they just maybe expect you to give them some coverage. But it's about saying, to, if you said something to Aoife or Gillian, like, did you like it? How did you get on? And that's just as important, because 6 months down the line, Gillian might have a space for you, but she doesn't have it that week or that day. Now, most people are really generous with their social media, and the easier you make it for them to share information for you, they will. The one thing I would say about the social is, I know a lot of people will post something and they'll tag loads of people, and like, it's kind of an ineffective thing to do, I find. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but a personal message to someone to say, Aoife, I know you write a lovely page every week about wine, we'd love you to try our wine. You're going to react to those things easier. So I think it's about kind of going smaller. Ireland's a really small country, a small industry, and you can figure out the people that will be important to you.
That's it. And I think, you know, often there's the fear of you guys. Like, look at you, you're lovely, you're accessible, you're friendly, you're not that scary. And I think there's that fear barrier. I'll just send that and then I'll just hide and wait and see what comes back. So can you guys give us some tips for everybody who's listening or watching, some kind of top tips super quickly in terms of how to engage in good media relations? I might start with you, Gillian, on that one.
Yeah, so I suppose the basics, first of all, read the publication or the website you're trying to target, because you need to get a sense of what they're covering, what they've already covered. You know, I mean, I have regularly got stuff from people pitching a story that has been in the previous week. So there's no greater way of showing somebody that you don't read their paper or their magazine. So familiarize yourself with the type of stuff they do, and have a think about their readership and their. So, for example, our readership in the Business Post of Food and Wine would be quite heavily skewed towards the ABC One market. They'd have a reasonable amount of disposable income, so you can have a think about that. You know, maybe if there's a product in there or an offering in there, you know, that might work for that readership. And again, as you said, Olivia, I mean, we were taught on the very first day in journalism school, it's the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why. Basic information. Again, I'm going to reiterate the photography, because I know with us, when we were relaunching Food and Wine, I mean, I fought very hard for a photography budget, because I just think it's so important. And if there is any way at all you can stretch to photography, I really would urge you to do it. I think it will be a very good investment for you. So, you know, as I said, know the product you're pitching to, know the readership, that audience of that product, and tailor what you're sending to go with that.
Okay. Perfect. Aoife, Ali, anything to add to that? We're running out of time, so I'm getting pinged.
I think I gave you my tips. Aoife, you can jump in there if you want.
I suppose just do follow up with somebody, but don't harass them. So if you send them an email, by all means, send them a little follow up, you know, a week later, because people are very busy and work remembering people are busy. But don't be harassing them. Don't be maybe, you know, chasing them in their DMs and so on.
Yeah. I'm going to make one more comment, which is basically, do not promise one journalist an exclusive and give it to somebody else. There is nothing that will ruin a relationship more than that. So just be very good. Don't promise what you can't deliver.
I just want to add in as well. I know you pointed out, like, everyone's contact details are there, so you might be more effective sending a direct email. We're all easily to contact. And also, if you don't want to just look at the mainstream media, there's loads of people out there that do lists and spread the word, like a Fifi's food blog. The Gastro Guys are brilliant. Their COVID list is fantastic. Joanne Cronin is an Instagrammer that shares loads of stuff. So go on my page, go on Aoife's page. Who are we following? They might be the people you want to follow as well. There's loads of resources available. Just, it's all out there. It's just spending a bit of time on it.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, guys. I'll hand over to Tracey.
Thank you.
Hello. Could I invite all the panelists back to camera, please? We're going to have a really quick Q&A session. There was so much good content this morning. We have run over, but please don't worry. We're going to get back to all the questions that come in over the course of today. So very quickly, I'm going to move to a question for Pól. Question here: does a business need to be in a position to make a financial investment in order to be innovative?
Good question. I don't think so. I mean, it depends what kind of innovation you're talking about. If you're talking about, you know, transforming your dining room or creating a new outdoor dining experience or a food truck, of course you need finances. But I think if this morning has shown anything, it's that you can be very creative, very innovative by using the time and space that's available to you now, by sort of running the rule over your social media, over your contact lists, by looking at, is this the time to generate a newsletter, for instance? Is this the time to evaluate your audience and how you're going to tackle them once you can get out and engage with them again? So, and I suppose also to give staff who aren't on their feet working away in the kitchen the chance to pitch in and to learn and to develop themselves, because oftentimes you'll find that because hospitality and travel are so busy that people just simply don't have the space to be creative. So I'd really use this time to encourage any and all ideas. So I don't think you need money, but obviously we would love it.
And one for you, Olivia. Somebody wants to know here, do I need to have a presence on all social media platforms or just a few? And how do I pick or prioritize those?
Okay, so it depends really. There's different platforms are used in different ways. Like the three main ones are Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But also LinkedIn is an important one, and there's been a lot of talk about that corporate offering. In terms of brands who are looking to hit up corporates, employees working from home, they should be using LinkedIn as a platform. Twitter is more like, I like to say, it's a little bit like a cocktail party. You go in and you get involved in conversation. It's not necessarily a place where you're going to sell your product. Facebook is a bit more salesy. You can put announcements up there. And then you've got Instagram, which is a little bit like a brochure. So it's very kind of aesthetic. You want to put like images of, with say, your people story in there, your products, that type of thing. So I believe all three are important. You just use them in a different way. And I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Just get familiar with the platform, sit back and watch what other people are doing, and then engage with it.
Okay, thank you for that, Olivia. You're seeing a poll coming up on your screen, so if you're a little confused there, it's just a quick poll to answer while the Q&A is going on. Question for you, Ian. Someone here is saying, I do get traffic to my offers page, but I find that the users are dropping off before they purchase. So I know you went through some of this in your presentation, but could you give some more final tips on that, please?
Sure, yeah, and you will get, that's called abandonment, when somebody goes to the shopping cart and then leaves without buying. You'll always get a percentage of that. But what really, helps reduce that abandonment is if you make that checkout process as simple as possible. Sometimes you have far too many fields, you've got poor layouts. If it's complicated, people will leave. That's number one. Make sure people realize that it's secure, so just even having a security symbol on that checkout page can really help. Another thing is have no surprises. When there's additional costs added on at a late stage in the booking or the process of buying, and then people go, oh, I didn't realize that cost was there, that can damage it and people can leave as well. So just keep it simple, make sure it appears secure and make sure that there's no surprises at the end.
Thank you for that, Ian. Question for you, Jennifer. Somebody wants to know, do you have any tips on how to get the best price from shipping companies to give my customers the best value for money?
Well, I would always say that go to at least 2 or 3 and get a couple of different quotes. A lot of it is to do with weight of your product that you're sending out or volume. So you're kind of negotiating on a couple of different things. But the other thing that's emerged recently as well is there's a lot of local new delivery services that have popped up all over the place. So I would also say research like local boards or any local areas where you would normally see new businesses being advertised or online, because there's a lot more options now than just the standard ones, particularly for within the island of Ireland. It's a bit trickier going abroad, then you are kind of tend to stick with the big named brands that do that, and with the big ones for international shipping, it's most definitely to do with volume, weight, and really shopping between them all to get the best one that suits what you're doing. But I would say go local for delivery as best you can within Ireland, because there's some great offers out there.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jennifer. So we've got about less than a minute left for you to give your final tip, each of you, to everyone on board today. And I must say at this point, we've had a tremendous attendance today. So thank you all for joining. Off you go. Who wants to start? Pól?
No.
Oh yeah, sure. I can't see the faces, so I wasn't sure who was going first. I think if you're anything like me, the minute you log off, you'll open your inbox and it'll be black with messages coming in again. So before you do that, take 2 minutes, write down 3 actions and ideas you're going to take from this morning, and then go back to the chaos of your life. That way, I think you'll be able to move forward with more purpose.
Yeah, I'll go next. I suppose my tip is really your analytics. If you're selling online, you don't have analytics and you're not monitoring that on a regular basis, you're losing sales because of that. It's extremely important. And I mentioned about setting up e-commerce tracking, so you can go into your Google Analytics and see, where you got traffic from, what pages are driving sales, how much sales you got. It's super important information, and focusing on that will definitely help you increase your sales.
Anybody else want to say anything, or we'll move on?
I might say something super quick.
Yeah.
Exactly. Consumer. I would say we're all consumers. So you think be the consumer in your own brand. Look at it through the eyes of how you look at other things yourself. Be the person who buys from other people, and transfer what you see and what you like into what you offer.
Thanks, Jennifer. Aoife?
I might just give a super quick tip in terms of the best PR campaigns are the ones that have plenty of lead time. When you're looking at occasion PR, which is an easy one to do, we know Easter is coming up in April. Start now, get your story out, and you will get better media coverage from it. Just be ahead of the curve.
Thank you. Aoife?
And I would just go back to what I said at the beginning, which is remember how far we've come, and remember all the strengths that we have to play at the minute, and how much people actually want to support you, and that includes us as journalists. We want to tell your story, so just, I suppose, take encouragement from that.
And I just want to say about information again. I was saying how easy we are to contact. Like, go and Google yourself when you're finished and see what comes up. And is it easy for me to find the information about you? And if it's not, start there. Why am I not on this listing? Or is my phone number or my email not on my website? Are my opening hours there? Like, that can be really difficult for us to find information out. And you already have your stories, so I think look for them. Like, who are your suppliers? Who are the people behind your brands? They're already there, so start to think about how you want to communicate that.
Yeah, and I'll just say as well, reiterating what Aoife said, there's a huge amount of goodwill now among consumers. They want to get back out there. I mean, I am just dying to be able to start travel pieces and food and wine again. Like, it's an open door you're pushing. We're all here to support the industry and to profile your business. So don't be nervous about getting in touch. We all love to hear from you.
Super. A huge thank you to all of our panelists today. You've done a fantastic job and some really useful information. For those of you in the audience, if you stay with me for literally 3 more minutes, I have a couple of slides to wrap up, and then we're going to let you go. But I really do hope you found today's session very, very informative. Okay, thank you for moving them on there. So Tourism Ireland have sent us across just some little tips for using their communications platforms. So those of you taking all of the tips away from today, please do remember to sign up to Fill Your Heart, or sign up, to tourismireland.com, industry opportunities, and you will be able to receive alerts on new opportunities for your food stories from Tourism Ireland. So using all those great tips you heard today, make sure you share your stories with Tourism Ireland, because they can communicate them out there into the globe for you. I'm not going into the detail, but all of this information will be in your pack later on. In terms of ourselves, so yeah, just working with ourselves, the most important thing that you need to do is sign up for the trade portal if you haven't already done so. So go on to failteireland.ie and sign up for, or log on to the trade portal and set up an account. And this is essentially a self-service platform where we can communicate with you. You'll find information on trade events, on funding, on all sorts of information that is relevant to your business on the trade portal. In terms of the COVID support hub, I can't say enough about this, but we in Fáilte Ireland have created an amazing platform with huge amounts of free business supports for you, from HR to sales and marketing to finance to performance to our general learning hub. There's just a wealth of information on there, and as well as that, there's that link to the research that we talked about earlier on. So make sure you keep checking back into the COVID hub where you'll find all the latest information. And the Discover Ireland, the Fáilte Ireland newsletter, also make sure you're signed up for that so that we can push out information and opportunities to you. And the next big opportunity that will be coming up is the Discover Ireland campaign. As soon as we can begin promoting Keep Discovering or Discovering Ireland again, we will be doing that. And we have, as any of you who attended Industry Day will have seen, we have a tremendous range of adverts going live when the time is right. So if you want to be part of those and have your business featured, make sure you have a listing with Fáilte Ireland. So go onto the failteireland.ie site and make sure your business is listed. If you already have a listing, make sure that it's the best it can be. Again, taking the tips away from today in terms of your imagery and your content, make sure that listing is the best it can be. And finally, I want to say the next F&B specific support that we have coming up is a fantastic breakfast innovation toolkit. Again, all of the details of this are on the COVID hub. There's a number of modules. The breakfast offers an enormous opportunity for change and also for re-engineering your menu and delivering some lean efficiencies to benefit your bottom line. In the interest of time, I'm not going into all of the detail on it, but it's everything from SOPs, measuring your impact, and making those differences that will be important to lean operations going forward. And the final slide is we have a podcast series coming up called Inside Food. It's beginning in the beginning of March, and it's going to be discussions and practical advice from some experts and some industry practitioners on consumer trends, innovating your menu, looking at food costs, driving sales, tracking labour costs, technology, and data analysis. So very important areas for you in the food and beverage sector. So please check back to the COVID Hub. And finally, I just want to say an enormous thank you to everybody, to our panelists, to our business or your industry peers who presented their case studies today, to my own colleagues in Fáilte Ireland, and both in food, to my colleague Paddy, who introduced the session, and to our regional colleagues. I hope you found today's session useful and helpful. The resource pack will go out to you in the next day. And as I say, the COVID Hub and Fáilte Ireland site, a huge resource there for you. Thank you very much and good afternoon.